Hello, and welcome everybody to another episode of Strickland. I'm your host, Winnie Boone, episode 341. We're doing this as a live stream. I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Stacy. That is at StacyPatton89 on Twitter. Stacy, how are you doing on this Monday night?
Victory Monday for both of us, and 50% for you, but
I think it's 75%.
Yeah, Sam's a Patriots fan, but he also hates the Patriots. So.
I was just gonna say, like, they won, but I lost.
Yeah.
in my quest for a better quarterback. So very sad.
Pyrrhic victory.
Shout out the Bills secondary. You may have heard them. We are joined today by the two hosts of the You Don't Know Ball podcast. That is TrillBroDude and Sam Sheehan. Sam, Trill, how are you guys doing?
It's well. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, we appreciate it. We're here to take care of the most important part of the Atlantic Division. That is making sure the Raptors get adequate slander. We are here to mediate that and make sure that is done appropriately.
I am actually here to represent one Masai Ujiri, and I just want to say that I feel like all of the accusations that have been made towards the Raptors organization are completely slanderous, and we will actually be countersuing because we want to send a message to the rest of the NBA that you can't mess with the Toronto Raptors. So,
the cyber crimes unit is investigating all of the emails. We're looking into everything. Me on the Raptors slander thing. We will be spreading lies about how you guys hired some of the top hackers in the world. That guy who stole 10 billion in cryptocurrency, he was the one getting all the Knicks plays. So
we'll have an entire country of people angry in your mention.
Wait, he wasn't stealing. He wasn't stealing the signs from coaches, right? Because apparently that's like.
Oh yeah, no. Schwinny knows all about that. Sam knows all about that too.
Yeah,
because he's a Patriots fan, and then
we
Schwinny's
invented that
fan,
shit,
so.
man. Yeah, we really invented that. Yeah.
Did they ever draft anyone from Michigan? Maybe that's where Michigan got the idea. I don't know if there's any good players for the Patriots from Michigan.
Yeah.
That I can think of. Yeah.
No, I've never heard of one in my entire life.
Chase Winovich. All right. Before we get started, that was a very good intro. Before we get started, I have to make a few announcements. The first being that the Strickland has Instagram. Check that out. That's at strick.land on Instagram, posting all kinds of new content on there. The Strickland also has a YouTube channel where you may be watching this podcast or the stream. If you are and you've not done so already, please hit like and then subscribe to the channel. That'd be a huge help to us. Also, leaving a comment would also be a huge help. The Strickland also has merchandise available on our website. You can find that at www.thestrick.land. There'll be a link that'll take you to the merchandise store. We got t-shirts, sweatshirts, hats, coffee mugs, water bottles, you name it. We've got it. Again, you can find that on our website. Finally, the Strickland has a Patreon, which you can subscribe to. There are a number of different tiers. There's a $6 tier that gets you access to Pod Strickland, this podcast that I host every Friday with Prez. You also get access to Strickland's revamped mailbag, which is now called Takes from Obvious Bozos, where you send us takes in our Discord channel, and we grade those takes. That is hosted by Andrew Steele, a.k.a. Doug, along with Zach Blatter. You also get access to the Strickland Discord, where the conversation never stops. There are further tiers. There's a $9 tier that gets access to Strickland, my solo pod where I rant and rave about things and more. You also get access to wonderful premium articles by Matthew Miranda. And now you get access to Strictly NFL, our new NFL podcast that is hosted by Constantine and Jeffrey Rasmussen. There are further tiers. There's a $15 tier, $30 tier, $50 tier, and $100 tier. Those come with a variety of additional benefits, like listening to pod recordings, merchandise discounts, and even potentially co-hosting a podcast alongside yours truly one day, whether you choose to subscribe or not. None of this would be possible without you, and none of this would be possible without BetOnline. The last of the major pro sports league kicks off this week, and BetOnline is your top spot for all your NBA action this season, with MLB postseason, NFL, and college football, and NHL in full swing. BetOnline is your number one source for wagering news, odds, trends, and predictions. Get everything NBA at your fingertips with both desktop and mobile access for every sport, anytime. Head to BetOnline today to get in on the action. Don't forget to use promo code BLEAV to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, where the game starts. I feel like this fucking ad read was written by like somebody from like my dad. It's like, head to the BetOnline today. It's like, what kind of fucking get your promo right? Ads reads right. Come on.
I mean, I'm on the website right now, and I'm putting a bet on the Boston Celtics to disappoint me. It's crazy that they have that line. They're just
Yeah, it's such
disappointing
a-
Sam
yeah,
Sheehan,
Yeah,
but
it's crazy. Yeah,
that's
such
just
a
the kind of-
tortured history. The Boston Celtics.
Yeah,
They've
it's
never
just
been
constant
never been good
bullshit.
recently or historically. It's been just a really tough existence to be a Boston Celtics.
They're
fan.
even good on television. They made a show about the Lakers, and they ended it with Boston winning.
That's so true.
Exactly.
I had to do a lot for that. You have no idea how in the dirt I was in the studios bribing to make that writer strike happen. So kind of get that out the door.
So before we're going to do an Atlantic Division preview. Before we do that, since this is actually a Knicks podcast, we do have to. There is a big piece of news that happened today.
yeah.
I guess something didn't happen today. Emmanuel quickly did not extend, or they didn't come to an agreement. Not really sure exactly what happened. Obviously, they could not agree on the number. So I guess like my thoughts on it, I just didn't. I'm like disappointed they didn't come to a contract agreement. I feel like I'm guessing just based on the reporting, it feels like he probably wanted something like 25 a year. They wanted to do something close to 20 a year. And I guess they couldn't come to a middle ground there. I don't know if that was because one side was unwilling to move, the other one was, or whatever it was. They obviously did not come to an agreement. I'm not sure it's the worst thing in the world. Like, you'd prefer that you sign him up and keep it that way. But like, you know, we've seen this front office kind of do the same thing with Mitchell Robinson. And granted, Mitchell Robinson was injured coming into that season and had the previous year cut short with that same injury. So that was part of the reason why they held off. And it's not exactly the same circumstance, but you still have the restricted matching rights on him. I don't really envision a scenario where it's like, oh, well, are they going to cut his minutes because they want to keep his market value down? Like, I just can't see Tibbs playing along with something like that. Like, if he's like, no, quickly helps me win, you're not going to like talk him out of not playing him because you're like, well, what if you played Deuce McBride? And like, well, can Deuce dribble yet? Are we sure Deuce can dribble yet?
They also have Dante DiVincenzo, who has a long history of that because that's what he accused the Sacramento Kings of doing a year and a half ago. So he could be like, "Listen, I see what they're doing here. Quick,
yeah, devil on the shoulder."
Yeah, he's a watchdog.
Why don't you just get on out of here so I can get some more minutes?
I think it's a little bit. IQ has kind of this amphibious role, right? Where he plays a lot of. That's part of his value. He can play on ball and lead the bench. That is something McBride. I think Mark Berman was like, "Let Deuce run," and I'll say, or he said Miles McBride. That's how you can tell he's a Fed, right? Because he didn't say Deuce. He said, "Let Miles McBride run." He. And it's like I have been the biggest believer in Deuce. He can shoot. Like, don't pay attention to the percentages. Take that for data, whatever. But he can't lead a bench unit. I think if there's anyone they would see as a quickly replacement in that role, it's Rokas Jokubaitis in Europe, who's probably the top European prospect right now outside the NBA. So it's I don't think that they have a. I think when you talk about a difference between 20 and 25, it can get a little, I don't want to say petty, but it can get into some of the kind of emotions around it where the Knicks say, the Knicks might say, we helped you kind of develop. We giving you this, we're giving you generational money. And IQ would say is that, yeah, but you started Alfred Payton over me. You had Alec Burks as the starting point guard. Kept Evan Fournier in the starting lineup. There's probably some feelings on both sides that make that $5 million gap a little bit more than it seems. But I mean, I think that we don't know all the facts. We can go into a million different theories. Ultimately, I don't think it matters a lot. I am curious because IQ had a teammate who was also potentially eligible for extension this year. We heard earlier this summer that the Sixers weren't going to extend Maxey. I'm definitely curious to your thoughts on that, Trill, as well. But I think this is a nothing bugger. I would have liked to lock up IQ. People have talked about, it's difficult to trade him this year if you sign him to the extension. I would rather have been able to trade him next summer because I think that's when they're going to make the move. But I don't think it changes a whole lot.
That if that was their reasoning, I don't think this is their reasoning because it's so it would be so fucking stupid to not do that. Like, oh, no, we want to extend him, but we're not going to do it because if some player X becomes available, we want to be able to trade him easily. Like, I think that would be insane. I mean, we know what we're talking about. We're talking about Joel Embiid. We're not talking about anybody else. Joel Embiid is not going to become available in this fucking season. It's not happening. Like, Daryl Morey is not going to trade him in the middle of the season because once Daryl Morey trades him, that's it. Like, he's done. Like, he's done in Philly. I just cannot imagine that being his. I'd be shocked. You guys can.
Daryl's not trading anyone.
Yeah.
What Daryl doesn't trade. Daryl will literally hold Joel's family hostage and be like, "No, there's no way I'm trading. Ownership won't allow it. Morey won't be on board with it. Believe me, I'm speaking from experience here. This is the second time in 3 years that we have been doing the same thing. Joel's not becoming available in season. Now, he might be available next off season, which would make that quickly extension point moot, which you're talking about right now. I mean, look, I personally think that a lot of teams tend to like to pay their guys early, and I think in some circumstances it's good to just take care of your guys, where it's like, all right, this guy's obviously worth this much to us. We want to take care of this guy. He was a hit for us at the end of the first round in a draft where we missed on the 8th pick in the draft, and we got this really good player in the 20s, and we traded the other player. I can understand that, but I also think from the Knicks' perspective, in terms of signing quickly, you're just keeping your options open. I mean, you have his restricted rights. You want to try to make him prove it over the course of this season. He's a really, really good regular season player, and he's proven it over and over. But if you're trying to build a championship team, and that's the ultimate goal, you'll get a third time, I would imagine, to see him in the playoffs, see if he can work through some of the things that he struggled with in the playoffs, and if he has that and he proves that, you can pay him next summer and everyone's happy. I wouldn't overpay a guy like a ton of money unless I felt like he had all-star potential on these kind of deals, or it was one of those things where it's like you're trying to kind of build in the progression and make the contract like a steal. And if you're paying him $25 million, it's just never going to be a steal. It might be adequate value a year from now with the rising cap, but it's not going to be like the greatest contract in the NBA. So I think it's fine for both sides to wait. Quickly can prove that he's worth this money, and the Knicks can keep their options open, whether they want to trade him, extend him, or whatever.
Real quick, I do want to ask, this is what I was hinting at, like, how do you feel about the Sixers not extending Maxey? We can
I think it's stupid, to be completely honest with you. And the reason...
Would you have given him max? Like a max extension?
Yes, mainly due to the fact that your other options are what exactly? Like, I understand that they're trying to keep him and try to get him under, so they can have this cap space plan or whatever next summer. I would have paid a guy like him. The team clearly, I'll put it like this. The team clearly sees him as a future all-star, because otherwise they would have traded him for Damian Lillard. They never once put him on the table for Damian Lillard. They never once put him on the table for any of these stars that became available. So if the team is telling you that, then the team is also telling you they think he's going to be an all-star at the very minimum. And if that's the case, then yeah, I'd just give him the max contract and not really worry about it, because as the money goes up, all these deals look insane right now, but 3 years from now, we're going to be like, that's actually not that bad of a contract if the guy is who you think he is. And they're already making that bet on Maxey by not trading him for these stars. So that's the thing for me with Maxey personally. But that's a little bit different just because the Sixers have kind of backed themselves into the corner where, like, if Maxey isn't an all-star, they're fucked. They're probably fucked either way, to be clear. But
well, I mean, this is why I don't think I think we're in the middle of the cap landscape changing in a way that is gonna make this happen. This is part of Malcolm Brogdon has fucked Emmanuel Quickley twice. One by getting his six man of the year stolen from him. And then second, because he was part of the negotiation team, the ACE negotiation team that led this new CBA. Everybody just gets extended. Nobody plays with cap space anymore, really. Like, I think the only person who's kind of zagging is Daryl Morey, and I don't think he actually really means it. He's just saying that because he doesn't want to trade James Harden.
Right.
So his cap space plan is like a moot.
It was forced
thing.
upon him.
Until a better option comes along, he will have a cap space plan.
So if I'm the Knicks and I have Emmanuel Quickley, look, the Knicks are one of the few teams that hypothetically could use cap space. One of like 3 or 4 teams in the entire NBA that like actually have a destination that would hypothetically be worth it. But I think Evan Fournier is a team option. I believe the team will be.
I think they'll move on from them.
Yeah.
I feel like they will be moving on from Evan Fournier.
Breaking
Less a
news.
fair take to that. Take that option.
Yeah. So, but you still got 2 more years, on the Randall and Brunson deals. So, I mean, like, it's not like the Knicks were never going to be cap space players, like, anyway. So why not see what happens in season with Quickley? I understand, because if you do need to trade him, it does make it easier to trade him. Like, there's probably not going to be a circumstance where you would need to trade Emmanuel Quickley, but like, I don't know. You never know. Things change fast in the NBA. Like, there can be times when like somebody that we have no idea right now is going to becomes available. I think the guy that I'm hearing the Knicks have been kind of kicking their tires is probably going to be available in the next year, besides Embiid, is Cat. And I think that, given some of the salaries and stuff that they would, want to move, and, it makes Quickley a more appealing trade chip. But at the same time, if none of that stuff materializes, you can just go back to the table. You have the restricted free agent rights. So you can match any contract he gets, and nobody is going to be paying him that money because nobody's going to have that cap space. So you're really, betting against you're dealing against yourself. The players union kind of screwed a lot of their middling level guys on this one. And I think that's why a lot of guys are extending. We're seeing more guys extend over the last like 2 or 3 years, and like especially this offseason. So I don't think it like necessarily tells of like, Quickley and the Knicks are at odds or anything like that. I think it just kind of makes sense for the Knicks front office, and they're kind of the hammer right here. So they're just going to wait it out. And I don't see a way that they get punished for that unless somebody does what the Knicks did with Jalen Brunson to them, where they like hire Quickley's dad as a coach and then like do all of this other.
But Jalen was also unrestricted, right?
Yeah, that's true. And Jalen was unrestricted, so it doesn't even matter,
And the Shark Tank was out. They said, "This is why I'm out," because they could have paid him for 56. So
you'd have to pull the Rob Pelinka, where he was Carlos Boozer's agent when he was on the Cavs, and he was like, "Just get rid of his restricted rights for no apparent reason," and then he went out and got him a better offer. And then they turned around and they were like, "Oh, what a slime ball move by Rob!" I think it was Rob Pelinka.
We know Rob Pelinka hates Ohio, so that makes sense.
Yeah, and true, and also screwed over the first era of the LeBron Cavs. So,
well, that was like, that whole thing was really funny because I think it was like they couldn't give him a certain amount of years unless he was unrestricted.
Yeah.
And so he's like, yeah, dude, don't worry, we're totally gonna agree to that deal. And he's like, just kidding. By the way, going to Utah. Which is how you know that he must have gotten paid, because he went to Utah. But yeah, like, look, I think the Quickley thing, I will say, like, the way, listening to Sam this entire summer just have like meltdowns about Marcus Smart being traded is kind of like my feeling about Quickley, where I'm just like, to me, he's like a player who this kind of happened with Smart, right? Where it's like every year the Celtics were bringing in a point guard, and then finally they were like, well, fine, what if we just make you point guard, dude? Which actually worked out pretty well. And then, like, I'm not saying I think Brunson is it's a different scenario, but in the sense that like you have this guy who can play with Brunson, replace Brunson when Brunson's injured or when he's not on the floor, and gives you value in different ways, provides value in basically every player combination he's been in through his 3 years have been positive on the floor. So he's basically just like winning all his minutes all the time.
Even the RJ Barrett minutes?
Yeah, they win the the Quickly Barrett minutes.
They're going to come for you, man. They're going to come for you.
Again, that is at TrillBroDude on Twitter. Feel free to send mean tweets at him. But
I have one guy named RJ Barrett Truther who's a fan of the podcast, and he literally will just tweet me anytime we talk about Barrett, anytime on the podcast. He just tweets me a different photo of RJ. And it's just like RJ was like stunting in like a polo the other day, and he said it to me. So they know me already.
Yeah, I know better than to disrespect RJ Barrett because, well, he might be dog shit 78 games out of the year. The 4 games he plays against the Celtics, he will always cook them for a
He bangs in threes on purpose. He called back on that, Sam.
Yeah, I was just like,
I definitely have tweets about that.
I'm not gonna say a damn thing about RJ Barrett. He hit a game winner in front of me.
That's what happens. I spent the entire season shitting on Mac Jones, and he plays like Patrick Mahomes yesterday. But yeah, like I kind of agree with you guys. I think for Knicks fans, it's more. I mean, look, we extended RJ, we extended Mitch, we hadn't extended a first round pick before RJ from like I think Charlie Ward was the last one. So like it had been a really long time, and so there's always this kind of like what are they up to? They must be about to trade this guy, and it's like. I'm not saying they won't trade him. Maybe they will. But I would be very surprised if, like, oh, we didn't come to an extension. Now we must trade him or we will trade. I don't think it's a signal of some certain path they're going to choose. And like, I mentioned this before, too. Like, if you want to say, well, they're probably going to trade him. Like, yeah, I mean, look, the odds are everybody in the NBA gets traded. So not really, like, saying much by saying that. We'll see what ends up happening. I still suspect that he'll play a ton of minutes because they want to win ball games and he helps them win ball games. So, and Tom Thibodeau is our head coach. So I can't imagine that anything else will be a priority other than winning games. Sometimes his evaluations of what helps you win games are not accurate, but I do think that
if he doesn't play quickly minutes, it won't be because he's trying to depress his contract value.
Yeah. It'll just be because Tibbs is doing some stupid Tibbs thing where he's like, I have to have Josh Hart on the floor right now. Which we saw in the playoffs was really awesome.
Gotta have heart. Can you elaborate on that? Miles and miles of heart.
Could I elaborate on that?
No, that's a Shane Falco reference. Come on, man.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. All right. Look, let's move on from the quickly discussion to our broader Atlantic Division talk. Let's start with Sam's favorite team, the Toronto Raptors.
Let's go.
So they had an off season. That's a thing that happened to them. Fred VanVleet.
They technically had an off season.
so Fred VanVleet is out. Dennis Schroeder is in. They keep Gary Trent Jr. I'm struggling to think. They extended Jakob Poeltl his new contract.
I can't believe you're forgetting the earth-shattering move of acquiring not Jaden McDaniels, but Jalen McDaniels from the Philadelphia 76ers.
The funniest thing about that was actually seeing like Sixers fans meltdowns. They're like, the fuck, man, Daryl Morey traded Matisse Thybulle. And I was like, I kind of understand why this is annoying. Actually.
We were upset because it was a salary dump of Matisse, and I called it at the time. And Jalen was kind of underwhelming for us. He had moments where it was like, oh, this guy's an athletic player that the Sixers just don't have any of those. So it looks good. But yeah, I mean, overall, it's whatever. Like, it's a very nothing move, but we love to get enraged all the time. That's what we do. So
it's a big part of like being part of the Northeast fan bases is just constantly being upset at all your teams.
Exactly.
Yes.
We're allowed to make fun of our teams, but if anybody else does it, it's like fuck you. That's our thing. That's not your thing.
If you don't feel like you're gonna have, if you don't feel like you're gonna have a heart attack every time you watch the team, you're not doing it right.
Yeah, I was going to say that the Raptors went through the transformation last because, like, for a while, like Raptors fans were like the ones that were just like, what I would call psychotically positive. Yeah, to the point of like anyone, but then Masai like broke them because they were finally good for a little bit, and then they were like, oh, we're just going to be good forever, and now they're like. They've been like jaded by like the front office being like fucked up that like all of us have gone through it like different hours at the time.
It was the Lowry thing is the one that broke them, I think, where they were like, why did we not trade Kyle Lowry? And he was just like, well, you know, the fucking offers weren't good. And it's like,
we have to send a message to the entire league that you can't lowball him.
Yeah, you can't.
I don't understand what do people not get? You can't lowball Masai Ujiri. He will let a player walk to another team for absolutely nothing and prove that he's one of the most elite GMs we've ever seen in the NBA.
Well, don't
he will
forget,
lose him for nothing.
They did get they did acquire Precious Achua from the
Precious
Lowry
deal.
trade, which
Did
is
he get an extension today?
He did not, and so he actually is the same agent as Quickly, by the way. But what's funny about that is I think what broke them was very specifically they were like, oh well, he salvaged it, he got Precious, and then for the last 2 years I've been like, so what does Precious do for us? Like, what is his skill set that makes him different from the other 6'9" guys in this team that can't shoot or dribble very well?
There was a rumor that the Sixers offered Maxey at one point. There really hasn't ever been confirmation of that. But there was a rumor that they offered Maxey and that
For Lowry,
Masai,
right?
for Lowry, and Masai wanted another first-round pick on top of Maxey, Thibault, and Danny Green. And at the time for Kyle Lowry, who was like 35, and he was going to be a free agent in a few months. And there was a time when people were still abiding by Raptor state media that follow the Raptors.
I mean, you can't actually buy that, right? Because if they didn't offer him for Dame,
but it's a different point, right?
This was
it's a different
years.
point in the career,
He was a rookie. He didn't even really play that much as rookie year.
I thought it was after last year. Yeah.
No. This was way long ago. This was 2021 trade deadline. So this was before Maxey was a starter. This was before he had only played like 40 games in the NBA probably at that point. Not even, probably 25. But long story short here, this was before Raptors fans stopped believing everything state media fed them. And Precious Achua, they were arguing that Precious Achua was actually better than Maxey.
Yeah.
So that was a fun 6 months until we got to the playoffs and Maxey scored 39 points in the first game against the Raptors. And I was like, okay, I think we can end this argument.
It's good talk, guys. It was a fun 6 months. But like, I guess they also drafted, as Andrew Online pointed out here, they drafted the second swaggiest white boy in the first round. They did draft Grady Dick.
True.
So they still have, OG has an expiring contract. Pascal has an expiring contract. And it feels like they're very upset with Pascal because he's just been publicly like, I'm not going to extend anywhere and I want to stay in Toronto, which I actually don't think he wants to stay in Toronto, or he's open to it is what I would guess. My feeling from this has been consistently that he just wants to hit free agency.
Yeah, he just wants one more payday.
Right. And so, and he knows,
which is smart.
Yeah. And he's looking at this market and he's like, I'm going to be the biggest name out there.
Exactly.
So like, I have all this leverage. Why would I sign an extension that you want me to take that's not going to pay me the number that I want? So I might as well go to free agency. And I think they know this and they're upset at him. They're trying to like basically get him to say he'll extend with somebody else so they can trade him. I don't really understand what the strategy is behind just being like, yeah, so fucking Pascal's a selfish piece of shit. But we like him. You know, he's fine. He's a good guy.
He will not extend anywhere else, by the way. Don't get mad at us.
Yeah, it's very obvious our three best players are all power forwards, but I don't see how this is my problem as the general manager. I think it's fine. So I think Pascal needs to, buck up.
I got better. Dennis Schroeder. Did you watch the FIBA World Cup?
German
I got Dennis Schroeder.
Yes. The second to third best player on the Germany team. Come on.
So I guess, like, do you guys, I do kind of still feel like the bottom won't fall out because they're not incentivized to, right? They traded their pick, which is top 8 protected. So it's not like they can really afford to just suck. And like Masai clearly doesn't know what he's doing. And I feel like if you don't know what you're doing, you tend to err on the side of like, we need to win games so I look good. They have a new coach. We'll see what comes of that. I just like, do you see this team? Do you really see Masai not making a move with like OG or Pascal by the trade deadline? Because I think that's really all the season boils down to for them, where it's like, whatever they are, even if they, have a good season, that's going to be what, like they sneak in as a 6 seed or they win a play-in game and get stomped in the first round. Like they're not going to do anything. So to me, it's like, so are you going to play for that upside, or will Masai finally just be like, okay, look, like I can't just keep doing this. I got to like punt on one of these guys. I would like to believe. Yeah, like that's the. Like, I would. He's like
never
going to
do it. Damian Lillard was just available, and he didn't even offer either of them or Scotty Barnes. So like it's insanity is believing the same thing. What I don't even remember the saying. I'm fucking up the saying, but doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Masai will never trade OG Anunoby or Pascal Siakam. End of conversation. Let's move on from that. It's just like, how many times are we gonna see him him just making little meaningless trades at the deadline that maybe incrementally improve the team, only to wait a few months and then set the team back again? Like, you make the Jakob Poeltl trade. The funniest part about all this is that at last deadline, we always make fun of the Thad Young trade because that's like a horrible, horrible trade that we never understood. The second it happened, we're like, why did you just trade a first-round pick for a guy who's like an 8th man, and now he's like a 12th man, and he's like 35? Like, I was in high school when the Sixers drafted Thad Young, and I'm 33 years old. Like, I never understood that trade, but the Jakob Poeltl one was funny to me because they get Jakob Poeltl. He comes in. He's actually pretty good for them. He fits a role, a need that they had, and he unlocks Fred VanVleet, and then Fred VanVleet walks. Like, look at his stats with Fred VanVleet's stats with Jakob Poeltl, and then they let him walk in free agency. So, like, I don't know, man. Like, I think Masai's too stubborn to ever trade any of these guys.
He tried to spin that into them like doing something right by Fred. He's like, no, we wanted to do something right by Fred. I'm like, what the fuck what does that mean? Like,
what are you talking about? Doing something right by Fred. What does that mean? You know, like so I just think it's so weird. It's like Masai is kind of, he's like making this bet that, like, if I show everyone that I'm serious about getting huge return for my guys, eventually someone's going to overpay me for my guys. But that just keeps not happening. And now they're just going to hit free agency. And like everything I just said about nobody having cap space and like nobody's going to pay for like Emmanuel Quickly, someone might actually pay for OG Anunoby. He's like right on the cusp of like a guy you would actually use cap space on, because he's really useful to a lot of different teams. Like, he is the prototypical 3-4 that can shoot from the corners, and that is what everybody is looking for.
Orlando needs another one really badly. So
yeah. I think that, like, I think he like kind of bet against himself, and he keeps trying to make the team good because he's not trading his guys. So he has to be like, oh, well, we're like, you know, we're being competitive. And it's not convincing anyone, least of all Nick Nurse, who is just like, all right, I'm fucking out of here. Yeah. Like, they're clearly in the part of the rebuild where everybody leaves and you hand the keys over to your good young player. And I'm using good pretty loosely in the terms of Scotty Barnes. So, I'm being unfair because I actually like Scotty, like, okay, but like, he's in real danger of turning into Ben Simmons if you don't like do something for him and don't make him.
I mean, if he doesn't shoot, is he even Ben Simmons? Like, he's not that fast or.
Yeah,
no, he's not.
Ben Simmons without 3 All-Star appearances.
yeah, right. Yeah, no, I more just mean like just how Ben Simmons was just like, it was impossible for Ben Simmons to be useful to a winning basketball team, and like we got there. So that's kind of what's in the cards for Scotty Barnes. So yeah, and it is fun that like Raptors fans are kind of catching up to this. Like, they're like, what the fuck is he doing?
They also have Gary Trent Jr. still. There's the other, like, they have him still, and it's like, I don't really.
No, wait. Well, hold on. Chris Haynes tweeted in July that they're working on an extension that will be done as soon as possible. It's now October 23rd. No extension for Gary Trent Jr. What does he do? What does Masai do?
I thought you were going to ask about Chris Haynes.
No. Oh, no. Well, I know what he does. I mean, he's very good at his job. It's just his job might not be so important.
His job is literally blowing smoke up Damian Lillard's ass.
Yeah, exactly. He's good at that. And Giannis.
I feel bad for Chris Haynes, man. Can you imagine going from being like, I'm going to be living in Miami to, oh my God, I have to live in Milwaukee?
What was the tweet that got him in trouble?
Did he?
Got in trouble for a tweet. Maybe name someone else, but yeah.
No, so like what Masai, I don't know what he's been doing for the past basically like 2 years since that Lowry thing, because they got that 6th seed right after they drafted Scotty Barnes. So Scotty's rookie year, they get the 6th seed. But even then, it always felt like that team was, you were like, okay, but none of you can shoot, and you just play this like insane style where all you're doing is like trying to get offensive rebounds constantly.
Yeah,
and
and
like,
turnovers. Yeah.
and nobody can dribble. Like what's happening right now? And I agree with you. Like I do think Nick Nurse probably at one point, because there was all this stuff about like, oh, Nick Nurse, he's running his guys on the ground, he's playing Fred VanVleet all these minutes, and like that's true. But then you'd also watch these minutes on Fred VanVleet, and I know there were Raptors fans who are like, well, he never gave Malachi Flynn a chance. Okay, and it's like, okay, maybe that's fair, but also maybe Malachi Flynn isn't good. Yeah, and maybe that's why I didn't give him a chance. Like,
I mean, the only person who's given Malachi Flynn a chance is Ball Don't Stop. His pro-ams.
He is the Ball Don't Stop like archetype.
Yeah, exactly. No, he on that. This is not a bit, by the way. He plays at Ball Don't Stop's pro-ams. Like he doesn't get on the NBA court, but yeah,
he dropped like 70 in one of the amateur games.
That's right. Yeah.
I'll also say that on draft night when the Knicks took Emmanuel quickly, I did a pod with Prez and Schwinn and Tyrese, and there was at least one person, I'm not going to say names, he might be on this pod right now, and it ain't Schwinn, who wanted Malachi Flynn over quickly, if I like him more. So,
I actually like Malachi Flynn as a prospect too, but it was pretty obvious pretty quickly that he was, no pun intended, pretty quickly.
I'm just gonna say this: Malachi Flynn, Ball Don't Stop stamped. You know who else is Ball Don't Stop stamped? Peyton Pritchard, who has been huge recently. So, and we all made fun of Ball Don't Stop all last year when Peyton Pritchard was riding the bench. I'm just saying, Malachi Flynn resurgence is coming.
So we heard a lot of reports. By the way, I just want to clarify. It was Mark Haynes who had some tweets that went.
Right,
not Chris Haynes. Sorry, so I don't want to slander.
No
Chris
slander
Haynes
to Chris Haynes.
Mark Haynes was the one who had some. Look that up for your own time. Sam, what we've heard also on that note is like the Celtics wanted quickly, and that's why the Knicks had to take them at 25. And do you know if there's truth to that, or?
I feel like that draft, I think Danny Ainge was still in charge in that draft. And Danny Ainge is a pathological liar. He has done more lying by himself than the rest of the Mormons that have walked this earth combined. He's the Mormon liar. And he always said that about everything. Like, oh, yeah, we really wanted Tyler Hero, but we couldn't get up ahead of Miami, so we had to take Romeo Langford. There was no way around it. We had to take Aaron Nesmith. There was just it was happening. So
we're going to trade 4 picks to get Justice.
Did you know that Masai almost traded up for Giannis?
Yeah.
I've seen video actually. Yeah. State media leaked the draft room footage. And my favorite part about that is I'm like, what was he going to trade?
Mm-hmm.
We don't have a first. They didn't have a first round pick. That was the year that they traded their first round pick for Kyle Lowry. So there was no way that they could.
He's just calling. He's like, hey, so fucking, you guys want to just give me your lottery pick?
I mean, it's worth a shot. Has anyone ever tried it? We do joke about this, but actually, the Celtics did just get a first-round pick for free, and they took Kelly Olynyk instead of Giannis from the Mavericks. It was a salary dump, right?
No, we traded up. Because the pick that was Bebe Nogueira. Lucas Nogueira. Yeah, whatever. There was some trade with the Hawks where we ended up trading up for Kelly Olynyk in that draft, and I was devastated. I hated that pick, and it turned out to be pretty good outside of drafting ahead of Giannis. But it was outside of that,
other than being 1 pick before Giannis or 2 picks.
Well, everyone would be early over Jokic if that makes you feel better.
Yeah, well, this is what I'm saying. Like all those guys, like Jokic, everyone picked someone ahead of Jokic.
The Sixers passed on Giannis twice. So
yeah, I was gonna say half the teams in the league passed on Giannis at least once. So it's like that doesn't count to me. Like it's not like the Kings drafting Marvin Bagley over Luka when everyone knew that Luka was.
Hey, Marvin Bagley got a second contract, buddy.
Or the Timberwolves taking 2 point guards over Steph.
That's Chris.
That's the worst ever. There's never been anything worse.
I mean, I can see Ricky Rubio was supposed to be like him. Like,
and he had a good career.
I can kind of get that. Yeah, and he was like fine in his career. It's the Johnny Flynn pick is the one where it's just like, come on, man. I'll never forget. I think Deion Waiters get picked 6th or something
Fourth.
like that. Or
Fourth.
It was
It
fourth.
was the Cavs took
Yeah.
Tristan Thompson and Deion Waiters same draft.
Yeah, that's what it was. So they picked him fourth, and he was the sixth man on his college team. He literally did not start for Syracuse that year.
Well, Devin Booker also didn't start for Kentucky, so stay woke.
That's
There's not starting for
also
Syracuse, and there's
they
not
were-
starting for Kentucky.
And they were the best. They were the best college team like of all time.
Yeah, I was gonna say that Kentucky. I know they didn't win the title, but like that is like insanely though. What was that? The John Wall Boogie team?
No,
I think it
that
was
was the
Pat.
Karl Anthony
Yeah, it was
Towns, Harrison twins.
Alex Poitras was a good college player. Yeah, they had-
Yeah.
Willie Cauley-Stein,
That's the other one I
Trey
was thinking of.
Lyles.
Yeah, Willie Cauley-Stein. And
Good-
Trey
I
very
mean, it was a Kentucky team where they had 1,610,000 dudes, so one of them is playing the two basically. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I was gonna say, so just to kind of put a bow on or bury the Raptors, maybe more apropos. Like, does anything they actually do this season matter? Because I really feel like this is kind of a pointless season for them in the sense of you're trying to clearly reorient around Scotty, but you've not done anything with the roster really, and like that's what I don't get about it. At least like, if you were trying to win still, but you had moved some pieces around, like you get rid of Siakam, you know, you get some shooters in, like I would be fine with that. But it just feels like they did not. They did the draft, they signed Dennis Schroeder, and they were like, okay, that's it, we're good.
I think they could have been interesting if they had traded for Dame. I'm going to be honest. Like I was kind of saying on our podcast that I thought trading Scotty Barnes for Dame was not a bad idea. Like, why not? You have all of these. Everyone else besides Scotty Barnes is a good player right now. Why not trade Grady Dick and Scotty Barnes and get Dame? And I think that would have been a pretty compelling package. I guess they didn't trade Kevin Durant. Trade for Kevin Durant when they had Scotty Barnes.
Well, my thing with
they were
this
gonna
too
do
is
that.
like when you ultimately see what Dame got traded for, I don't even think they needed to get up Scotty. I really don't. I think if they were willing to pony up the picks, because they have 3 of their own first, they would be able to offer 2 swaps, and they had the contracts to give up. Like I think Gary Trent Jr. and some of the other shit would have gotten them there.
Chris Boucher, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, do you give any credence to the idea that, like, yeah, he said I only want to play for Miami and I won't play otherwise. But if you're like, all right, but you get to play with Giannis, that changes things in a way that you get to go to Canada.
I have a hard time believing that if they.
So you think he wouldn't have? They would have. Like he would.
I think if they got everything that they would have wanted, let's say everything within reason. So I'm just saying like the picks and expiring contracts for Dame from Toronto, I think they would have been like, look, we love you and we're super, like, it's cool that you have preferences. Our preference is to not get jack shit for you. And so therefore we will be doing this trade.
But
now,
I mean,
like,
is Toronto worried that he's just going to not show up at that? Because I think he will show up because it's Giannis. Maybe, like, is that a thing that kind of...
Dame was never not showing up,
Yeah.
let's be honest. But beyond this, I think they did make that offer, and I think that they did the math and they realized that getting Drew Holiday and flipping him for Malcolm Brogdon, Robert Williams, and 2 more first-round picks, getting a future far-out Bucks pick and a Bucks swap, the draft capital's similar, the player contracts, Brogdon, Rob Williams, and then I guess Ayton is a separate trade in itself. But they got enough talent back for the Blazers. Like I think
they did fine in the trade.
I think the Raptors made a legit offer. They just tried not to offer. Like Drew Holiday was by far the best player that was offered compared to whatever the Raptors would offer because they were never putting in OG, Pascal, Scotty, whatever. Long story short,
Miami never offered Hero. He's a huge part of their future.
Yeah, I know. I saw that today. Yeah, which honestly, respect to Pat Riley. I think it's really cool that he's standing by his players like that, and that he would never trade. You know, as Sam has called him before, pituitary gland Jack Harlow.
Laughing at my own joke. Sorry.
it's a good nickname.
Yeah.
Although I found out they're like the same height, which is unfortunate, but it's still good for the bit. But yeah, no. Here's the thing with the Raptors this year. I think they're going to be annoyingly competitive like they usually are. I think that they're going to steal a lot of wins because their whole thing under Nurse, their whole thing under this new coach is just always been, we're going to be the pain in the ass team no one wants to play on a Wednesday night when they're missing their star or guys are just kind of phoning it in. They're going to steal a bunch of wins on the margins because they're just going to out-hustle you from night to night. I don't think they have the talent to win a playoff series. I don't think they even have the talent to really even make the playoffs. They might be in that play-in range and get in as a lower seed. But I do think that they will be one of those teams where it's a lot of the same energy. It's a lot of the same whatever. And the thing that the only thing you can really bank on this year is developmental progress. Hopefully from OG's finally taken the leap in year 7 or 8 or whatever it is. And then Scotty Barnes developing into more of an on-ball creator type. Those are the two things that I guess you could look forward to, but I don't think they have the spacing to ever have a good offense. They don't have the engine to have a good offense. They don't have the pieces to be a good team this year. And I think that what's their over under? What's their line?
I can look it up real
37
quick.
and a half.
35 and a half?
37 and a half, I think. I bet it.
I think we took the slight over on this, but only because I think they're going to win like 38 or 39 games and they'll be like the 9 or 10 seed. So yeah, they have that to look forward to. Yeah. I don't see any scenario where they win like 45 games though.
We had it 36 and a half when we did our lines.
Okay. Yeah, I figured they're going to rest somewhere in that range.
We both did slight over.
Yeah.
The more I thought about this though, I kind of wish I had taken the under, honestly, to be honest, because the
36 and a half, by the way, is line.
Nick Nurse did a lot of that. It's a low line, but like Nick Nurse did a lot, and they were like playing like 6-guy rotations just to like grind out these wins. And I just I don't know. We have no idea if this coach is good. You know what I'm saying? Like that's the other thing. I think Nick Nurse was doing a lot for that team. I mean, he was making his guys hate him in the process, but like, I think they were getting like a maximum amount out of their guys. And I just think that they don't have that much talent on the roster. So this guy is going to be under, he was hired by this front office. He's going to be under a mandate to like play all their developmental guys and stuff like that. Like
he might be under a subpoena. No, but I also think like there's something to be said of just, it's fun to make fun of like Masai and just the Raptors in general. But even like when they became that kind of like a joke when they had the DeRozan Lowry thing where it was like, LeBron owned them and everything, LeBronto, like that team was together for a long time. They built kind of like, there's like an inherent like baseline foundation you establish, right, with the group. And so like they had that for a while, right? And so when they win the championship, of course, they take out DeRozan and they added Kawhi, they make a trade for Gasol, right? Like those pieces now, like people forget it wasn't just Kawhi left, sure. But that next year, right? Like they still had Marc Gasol, they still had Ibaka, they still had those guys, and now like those guys are gone, right? They're retired, like they're done playing basketball for all intents and purposes. But also like now you've lost Van Vliet, you've lost Lowry, you've lost these guys that like kind of were the culture, and I do believe this was part of what was very like there were all these reports last year of like internal discord, right? Of like the vets not getting along with the young guys. Yeah. And I do think there's something of like when Pascal came in, when OG came in, when Fred VanVleet came in, they came into an organization that had like built a certain standard. So when they were coming in, like those guys that were still like that were the core of the team were establishing that standard, and you had to meet that to kind of like be with the team or whatever.
They won 50 games like every year. Like they just don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
So.
And now it's like you've lost so much of that, and it's like you're turning it over to Scotty, but that Pascal's sitting there like, I'm fucking better than him, so you can't turn it over to him. Like, give me the ball. And it's this weird thing. So I don't know. I still think I'm more with you where I think they'll be really annoying to play, because even if Pascal is annoyed, I just think he's a real pro. Like he's going to try, he's going to compete, and they have a lot of those dudes. So like, even if they don't get along, I do think on a collective level, they'll generally try. Is that enough? I don't know. I wouldn't love betting this because, all it
would be a stay away for me. It just feels around the range that they're going to settle in. I don't feel confident in either direction.
I do think they're a play-in team. I do think they'll be a play-in team.
Yeah.
All right. Enough about the fucking Raptors. Let's move on.
Yeah. Woo! Let's get them out of here.
Yeah. Let's move on to the most boring team in the division, which is the Brooklyn Nets. I don't have strong thoughts on this team. I think they'll be really good on defense. I think they'll be really bad on offense. And Ben Simmons maybe will play some games this year, and that will be cool. And Mikal Bridges will score a lot of points for a bad offense, and people will pretend that he should have had more usage while he was on the Suns with Devin Booker or something like that.
What about Cam Thomas? He was averaging 40
Breakout.
for like a 3-game stretch.
That's right.
Ball
That's
don't
right.
stop. He's got the stamp. He's like the ball don't stop king.
Yeah. I love the joke about Cam Thomas because he is the ball don't stop ultimate player. But I'm sorry, if you score 40 points in 3 games in your second year in the NBA at like 20 years old or 21 years old, you are an NBA player. And it's like, it's kind of wild to me that everyone has, like, even including the Nets' own coach, has just been like, no, you're not even getting minutes. So I'm interested to see. Look, he is a ball of energy and chaos that I enjoy watching. I don't know if he's ever going to contribute to winning basketball, but he's certainly a fun player. Ben Simmons is the renaissance is so funny to me because he's only averaging like 8 points a game in the preseason, and everyone's like, he's back, and I'm like, bro, he has not. He hasn't averaged 15 points a game since before COVID hit. We're coming up. By the way, during this NBA season, we're going to have the 4th anniversary of COVID, and Ben Simmons has not averaged more than 15 points a game since before. It's over. Like, he might be a very good defensive player, and he might get some assists and rebounds and whatever and fill up the stat sheet, but like, All-Star Ben Simmons is never coming back. We can move on from ever thinking about that. I'm more excited to see. I'm not really excited to watch the Nets at all, but
neither are their fans.
Yeah, I think that their fans are kind of pissed because obviously everything went to shit with the last era of it. But I'm more excited to see, just generally speaking, with the Nets, where they go from here. Because like, I think they're going to be the team that trades for Donovan Mitchell next offseason. And I think that is what they're setting up for here, and that's why they weren't in on Dame. And if that's the case, then you get like Donovan Mitchell, Mikal Bridges, and whoever else around them. Probably
Ben
Claxton,
Simmons.
or well, hopefully not. Maybe Claxton or whoever. Then they become a really interesting team to me. But for right now, it's more just about like watching Cam Thomas ball out. And the wings and Claxton could be their best player at a certain point. So it will be interesting to see that. But otherwise, yeah, I mean, I think that they're going to be kind of a boring team. But yeah, fun defense and really, really bad offense.
Do you think they're better? They'll finish above the Raptors?
I had them below the Raptors in my standings, but I think I had them back to back. I think I had them like just outside the play-in, and I had the Raptors as the last play-in team.
I don't know if Jacques Vaughn's actually good, but I also like don't know how to judge anything about him as a coach right now because
I know Nets fans who think he stinks, but also we all think our coaches stink. So
no, Tibbs is great. He's wonderful. Just a beautiful man.
Yeah.
But like with the Nets, it feels like they're like, okay, fuck, we got to do the thing that we did. Like, we got to do the thing where we are plucky and we compete every night and we're like a well put together organization. And then we're going to, we're going to find our D-Lo and we're going to have some surprise all-star injury replacement guy. And it's like, maybe McCall is that guy. I do like really, he's really good, but we talked about this before when you came on, Trill, where it was like, he's really good, but I'm also like, okay, you're really good for like the 24th best offense in the league when you're the guy. So it's like what he's scoring and all that stuff. I'm like, that's good, but clearly you're not like the dude that we need to build the offense around. So if they get Mitchell,
he would be the perfect second guy on a team like the Sixers, to be completely honest with you. It's funny. I know we traded him on draft night, but in all seriousness, like Embiid plus wing who can shoot, defend, create a little bit, plus Maxey would be a really nice team. But like, if he's the guy that is leading your offense, you're gonna have he can't create for others, and he's shot out of his mind from the mid range.
Right.
when he got to the Nets last year. Like, I would expect a little bit of regression. He's an awesome player, but I think that he's going to be more as that when he's your second or third best player and you have a high-level creator or an MVP candidate, your team's going to be great, just like it was with the Suns. If he is your best player, you're going to have, you know, a very limited ceiling.
Is there like, I mean, I think the hardest thing for them is, so they have other teams' picks, which is good, but they don't have
Good
theirs.
picks.
Yeah, right. Yeah, they have all those late Suns picks and the Mavs picks.
Mm-hmm.
But like they don't have theirs until I think 2028 or something. I don't know what the fuck it is. It's not for a while.
Yeah.
So like they kind of have to play this waiting game where they're just like hanging out in the middle. I think if they had one more young guy that was like, they just don't have a guard that you're like I know Cam Thomas can score, but do I really want to put the ball in his hands and be like, run point for us? Probably not, because
No,
he's
he's
not
a
They have
bench
Landry Shamet still.
Yeah.
No, he's on the Wizards now.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
He's like
I think that's why Trill. Yeah, I was
go
gonna say I think that's why Trill said that they were gonna target Donovan Mitchell, right? Like I think that's what they're looking for. Is they're looking for that big guard to kind of, you know, tie them in together, because they have Claxton, Cam Johnson, Mikal Bridges. They got a pretty nice, interesting young front court that they can kind of upgrade, and they can get the other guy, and they have the picks to make these trades. The other thing is that the picks that because a couple of these picks are Rocket swaps. I can't remember if it's this year or next year. And the thing is that the Rockets are also very bad. So even if you're like good, you know, you can still be bad without it being like, you know, kind of like when the Celtics got the Nets picks, where the Celtics were good. So it was like disastrous because you're picking in the 20s. If you swap with the Rockets at this point, I still think you're going to end up in like pick 10 or pick 11, you know, at worst. So I do think they have a little bit of an option here to like, be bad at least, you know, one or two of these years. Like I don't think they have
Sean Marks is also good at drafting outside of the top of the draft, by the way. Got Karis LeVert, Jared Allen, Nick Claxton, and he never had high picks. Like, he's good at that.
Yep. He's really good at things like that. He's really good at setting the tone for an organization.
In terms of their exciting guards, they still have Bitcoin Boy, and they still have they got Lonnie Walker. Well, I actually do like Lonnie Walker quite a bit.
I like Lonnie Walker, but he's also like, I like him in a way that is not really relevant for them. Like I like him more.
He was on the Lakers. He was
Right.
cool because he came off the bench and would just randomly shoot the shit out of the ball and provide energy. But on a team like the Nets that doesn't have like a ton of high level playmaking, I struggle to see where he can kind of thrive.
I do think they could end up being like a pretty elite defense.
They have
Between
pieces.
between Claxton, Mikal Bridges. We'll see. I know Dennis Jr. had a really good defensive year with Charlotte. I'm still like, I think Steve Clifford is really good at getting a lot out of guards defensively. Like that's just been a thing that he does very well. He had like a top 10 defense with Evan
he's
Fournier
more of a
and
point
Kemba
of
Walker.
attack guy. He's not a great team defender.
So, but like that's kind of enough. I mean, if they can they have the infrastructure to be a pretty solid defense, their offense is just going to be brutal. But like I think they can play a lot of ugly basketball and win enough to get into the play-in. But I don't see them having upside to do much more than that this season.
Do you think Donovan's going to be interested in going to? He gets to play in New York, but
I mean, I think so. I everything I've heard is that they're interested, and like maybe Miami just has a better offer or is willing to put more on the table. But we just saw that whole thing.
Pat Riley
shake
always
out.
finds a way, though. Have you considered that?
I know. I mean, I think even Heat fans are getting to the point where they're like, retire, old man. So I don't really see, like, I think that what's going to be the market, you guys probably aren't going to be interested in Donovan Mitchell. And then it comes down to the Nets and the Heat. And like, if he wants to be in Miami or New York, there's one team that can help him be in New York that is not the Knicks, and that's the Nets. So I think that the Nets could come up with probably a better package, to be completely honest with you, for Donovan Mitchell. I mean, like, if you just offered Cam Johnson, Royce O'Neal, or let's say Dorian Finney-Smith, Cam Johnson, and like 2 first-round picks, what is the Heat offer that beats that? is it? Do they really like Tyler Hero in Cleveland? Because otherwise, they're going to be able to offer a similar amount of picks, and they won't ever trade any of their other players. So,
yeah, I do. We'll talk about the next when we get to them, but I actually have thought about this a lot, and I kind of feel like, while it's obviously not the ideal thing you'd want to do, now that you have like Brunson, I could still see them being like, especially if Embiid's not going to be a thing, if they're just like, fuck it, like if we can get Mitchell, we'll get him, and then we can try and figure out the rest later. All right,
year from
moving on
now, Embiid could be a thing, but yeah.
Yeah, and we'll see. We're going to talk about the Knicks and the Sixers.
I also think Donovan Mitchell would rather sign in Cleveland than play for the second choice in New York. I just don't think he wants to be second fiddle in New York. If he comes back home,
but you're not. But also, if we know, he did put them on his list. It was the Nets, Knicks, and Heat last time.
That was before they traded KD and Kyrie, though. Right?
That's true. That's a good point. But also, I just want to say, if that is the case, then it's basically just the Miami Heat. Like he's just going to Miami then.
Yeah, I mean, I think he would go to the Nets. Like, at the end of the day, like, for some guys, maybe it'll matter. Like, oh, I need to be in the biggest team in the biggest market. But if the fucking Clippers can get Kawhi and Paul George, like, and the Nets already got KD and Kyrie, so like, I'm sure that they can get guys to go there. All right, we can do. Let's do Sam's team. Let's do Sam's team. Let's do the Celtics. I think preseason is pretty stupid for the most part, but I think for them it was relevant. I thought it was relevant for them because it was like you needed to see how these guys just fit together and everything. And I thought they looked good, which is not too surprising. And we'll see how it goes against, real basketball games and stuff. But I thought they looked good. The spacing is really good. I still don't love. Like, I still feel like there's a ball handling issue at times, which is not going to matter in preseason. Crunch time will be interesting, but I actually think they're going to be the number one seed now in the conference.
Yeah,
barring some horrific injury luck. Which, like, I know Kristaps is an injury. He's an injury risk, but you traded Rob and Brogdon to get Drew. Drew has been pretty healthy, I think, over the last few years.
Yeah, he's missed 5 games over the last 3 years, I think.
And that's crazy because he was like an injury-prone guy at one point in his career. So like he's durable. We know Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum play games. I mean, not that Pritchard has proven to be durable, but there's no reason to suspect he's going to miss a bunch of games. Horford is kind of a risk, but I do like. It seems that is he coming off the bench? That's going to happen here.
So it's they're kind of like teasing it out like it's going to be Drew Holiday coming off the bench.
Come on, Drew Holiday is not coming off the bench.
I was going to say, but I think it's going to be. I also like he's just such a sicko for shooting. Joe Mazzulla can't help himself. Like taking Al off the court. I think that's the clear. I think that's what they're going to try. I do think it's going to be fluid, and I do think it is going to be like kind of vary from night to night. I think it ultimately all this comes down to is just Porzingis. I mean, that was the most encouraging thing was how Porzingis looked. He looked like what all of the Celtics fans that were mad at me said he was going to look like. So I might be owned here.
He looked like a unicorn.
Yeah, he looked like a unicorn. He looked. He looked ready. He helped the spacing. It does help. We're seeing this with Victor Wembanyama when like a guy who is, 7'1" plus with a big wingspan is shooting a 3-pointer. Like you can close out and it doesn't matter. Like they just shoot over the top of you, and that's one of the biggest things that's really helping the Celtics spacing. And I think that it's really this Celtics entire season is pretty much going to come down to is Kristaps Porzingis healthy when the postseason comes around. Like I really don't even think it matters too much if he goes down in the regular season because I don't see the Celtics finishing worse than 2. It's probably going to be them or the Bucks with the number 1 seed in the East. And I just I think they're going to be mostly fine. Jason Tatum has never been hurt for an extended period of time. He's kind of turned into Trill and I have talked about this. He's kind of turned into like small Giannis now after being like a lights out like jump shooter like his first 2 years in the league. Now he like can't shoot pull-ups at all, but is like a demon at the rim finishing. So who knows what's going to happen. I feel pretty good about them, to be honest, after, the Drew Holiday trade really made the team make a lot more sense to me. So I feel pretty good about them in the long run. It's kind of like being a Yankees fan, man. Like oh, all right, these are all our mercenaries and our like one guy that we've had on the franchise. So, let's see what happens.
Is there buyer's? I don't want to say buyer's remorse. That's the wrong word. Mm-hmm. But you had Smart. I think Drew Holiday is a really good replacement for what Smart and Brogdon gave you. Mm-hmm. And you had a really promising young.
What did Brogdon give you?
What?
A fake 6 man of the year?
A fake 6 man of the year. And he shot really well in the Philly series to the point where everyone said that he had a good series. And then it was, he got hurt. And that's why he was bad. And, all right, man.
And he fucked Emmanuel quickly. So,
yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
I don't know if many people have done that. So I guess the question is, I think Porzingis, the talent, I think, has never been in question. It's the health. It's maybe the consistency, depending on how much you read into what happened in Dallas. Is this I think this team was already great. You have Drew Holiday locked down, elite defensive player. Well, you had one in Smart, right? You have Porzingis now, a really good rim protector. You had one in Williams. Obviously, Porzingis can change your spacing, but you have some really good, talented players. You lost in 7 games in the Eastern Conference Finals. I think that there are matchups this looks better in. I think from an overall talent perspective, I can get it, but there's some risk involved. Ultimately, globally, is this a positive? Or, how are you kind of evaluating the whole totality of it?
I'm probably the lowest anyone's going to be on it, and I still think with the fact that they were able to get Drew, I think it does help. What I was really concerned about with losing Smart is Smart makes your defense so pliable. He's not like a point of attack guy, and he was bad on defense last year, which I think a lot of Celtics fans, really held that against him because they're sickos who watch all 82 regular season games, and those games don't matter. It's just the playoffs that matter. But with him not being pliable, you only have Derek White and Jason Tatum guarding on the perimeter in a competent way. Jaylen Brown is a great one-on-one defender who gets very easily lost in rotations. So having things where you're making it easier for Jason Tatum is very important. And a lot before the Celtics got Drew Holiday, a lot of what I was hearing was Derek White's going to be our point guard. Jason, you got to put the ball in Jason Tatum's hands. And it's Jason Tatum is our best perimeter defender. He's our best everything. Derek White is going to be relied on even more without Marcus Smart. I think the Grant Williams departure was sneaky important, especially for a playoff team that's going to need to play Milwaukee. So I just think that the new composition, it's more top heavy. They're less likely to go doo-doo mode, as I call it, where you have, shitting down your pant leg in the 2-minute drill. I do think, which when he brought up about the ball handling is still something I'm really worried about. I don't think Drew is a lights out ball handler. I don't think Derek White is a lights out ball handler, and neither of their all-star forwards are particularly great ball handlers. So, I think it's going to be the same thing it has been.
Challenge ones.
Here we go. So maybe that's the key. Maybe he's the ball handler they're looking for. But I just really think that they are going to be the. I think that they built their team to beat Miami, and I think that I don't know if that's going to be relevant this year. Let me just say it that way.
You think the moves they made were constructed specifically because of the trouble they've had with Miami? They played them 3 times in the playoffs now in the last 4 years, right? You think that's specifically so? This has okay.
They watched Drew Holiday in that Bucks Heat series and said, "Let me get some of that."
Well,
in all series,
the Porzingis it seems, but that works for the Bucks too, right? Because you're drawing either Brook or Giannis away from the rim.
Sure.
At that point, that helps Tatum a lot. That to me is the logic behind it.
The Celtics are going to win 60 games and they have a conference finals floor. If Sam wasn't a fan of the team, he would just be able to say this objectively. But this is what the reality is. The Celtics are going to be the best team in the regular season, and they have just as good a shot to win a title as the team that won the title last year, probably. And I picked the Bucks to come out, but I also think that was built on the fact that the Bucks have to make some in-season changes in order to sure up their perimeter defense and fix some holes that they have created by Middleton getting older, Brook Lopez getting older, and losing Drew Holiday. Having said all that, the Celtics have the best top 6 in the NBA. They are going to probably run away with the 1 seed. They won 57 games last year and they got better. Like, I think that the only way that they'd have to have multiple big injuries for me for the only way for them not to win like 55 games at least. Like they're going to absolutely cruise. Like I just don't see a team that could threaten them for the 1 seed except for maybe, I don't know, Cleveland. Like the Sixers.
That's who I would pick.
Yeah.
That's who I would pick, honestly, because they had the best net rating last year, and I do think
their regular season,
their depth's better. Yeah,
their regular season cheat code. They're gonna that's the thing with these small guard heavy, firebombing lineups. Like they don't get punished in the regular season, and I do think KP's health and those kind of things, and I think the Boston will probably be strategic with how they use KP and Horford, right? So.
Yeah. And also just, I don't know, all the Jaylen Brown stuff, go back and look at Jaylen Brown in the playoffs. It's literally just Miami. Like, and I think that has created a sort of a crazy, like, overcorrection. I'm just annoyed. I know Schwinny understands this. Like, the Celtics had a real shot to, like, win it with, like, their guys. And they just, the Heat had one of the luckiest like shooting runs of all time, and I'm still mad that
we all hate Miami here.
Yeah,
We've all experienced it.
I want them. I am gonna dance on their grave so hard this year. I know I'm tempting the fates, and they're gonna be back in the finals again because I said this, but
I'm gonna have a legacy game.
Yeah, oh, God, I'm already like I heard the name Cole Swider, and I was like Paul Atreides in Dune when he can like hear the name of the man who will kill him from the future, even though he has no idea that man is going. Like, I heard that name, and I'm like, that's an evil name. I don't like that name. So demonic franchise. Salt the ground after we the crypto.com arena.
You got to get in Adrian Brody's DMs too. You can kill by association.
The only thing I think that really, like, I mean, like, obviously if you lose any of these guys, right, it's like if you lose Tatum, if you lose Brown, if you lose whatever, but like I do like Porzingis matters in a way that I think is different, because if he's out for the season, it's like, whoa, so Al Horford, like, and Luke Cornett, like, that's our championship front court here. Like, I don't know, that's the only thing that is, I think, a really big gamble. And
they'll probably also be cautious, even if he's not out for the season. If it's something they can be cautious with, you have to imagine they will be cautious. Which I think could blunt them from just the 1 seed. They're not going to.
I would be lying if I said, like, because we talked about this before the offseason started. Like, I thought going after Porzingis for the Knicks was like a move that it would have represented a pretty big risk, and it would have also represented like you're going to make a move that is changing a kind of key core of your identity, because
our offense was New York. He doesn't know what it's like.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, our offense's entire thing last year was offensive rebounding, like control the possession battle, all that stuff. And with Porzingis, like, not that he's a high turnover player or anything, but you're obviously betting on him opening up the floor and his shooting and all this stuff is going to – I thought it was a risk worth exploring. I understood why they didn't do it, and it, like, obviously the Celtics do it, and after the Celtics did it, it was still like, I don't know, like, I kind of was like, something about this team feels weird. The Drew Holiday trade helps a lot.
Yeah, that's where I was at too. I was like, I'm not crazy about this move. Then they traded for Drew, and I was like, oh, okay, now this is unfair.
Yeah, well, this sucks.
Yeah, I was like, cool, thank you, Milwaukee.
Yeah,
thank you, Milwaukee. I prayed all offseason that Damian Lillard would not get traded to the Miami Heat, and it was the greatest monkey paw of all time. He ends up on the fucking Bucks, and then Drew goes to the Celtics. Awesome.
We both would have been so happy if Damian Lillard had gone to the Heat. We can still go back.
We'll never know now.
We'll never know. I was saying that Damian Lillard the Damian Lillard trade was gonna ruin the Heat franchise for decades. I was so excited
because Jimmy Butler would no longer be considered the best player, and they would hate him.
Yeah, it was gonna happen. He was gonna destroy the team. Yeah.
So is this like? We haven't even talked about any of the. is Joe Maz like? Is this like he's got to at least get to the finals type of season for him?
I mean, I don't know. They didn't fire him last offseason, which means that he's kind of the guy. I mean, this is just kind of what the Celtics do, that they're like very like culture based, you know, like, so they're not going to like let the coach get bullied around. That's pretty much why Smart got traded. I have a theory, and I've heard enough people around the team kind of suggest this, that Smart had too strong of a voice and was like, you know, I think that game 6 in Philly when Al Horford and Smart staged a mini coup and were like, you have to fucking play Rob Williams. I think that was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back, because the coach didn't have authority anymore. And like Smart had more authority than Joe Mazzulla did. And so in order to
By the way, that swung the series and the Celtics won the series. So they should have just made Marcus Smart the head coach and fired Joe Maz.
Agreed on all points.
First player coach since Bill Russell.
Yes, they should have done that. I'm telling you, we would win the title next year. But but he did. I mean, to be fair to Joe, though, like he was in a really fucking rough situation last year. I still don't know what I think of Mazzulla Ball. I did like the interview he gave JJ Redick. I thought he said a lot of the right stuff. I don't think that ultimately matters that much, but he'll be. They got a lot of good assistant coaches around him. Bill Simmons said this, there's no excuses anymore. So we really went all in on this fucking Morey Ball, shooting 53s a game or whatever they're going to do. So let's see what happens. I think it'll probably be pretty good, but if it does go bad, it's pretty damning on Joe. So I'm still reserving the right on whether or not Joe is a good coach. He was bad last year, but I don't think a lot of coaches would have been good in his
tough situation
last year. Yeah, exactly. So
and you could tell like the entire season, all those guys are getting interviewed, like Jaylen Brown and Marcus Smart. They're always like talking about Ime Udoka and shit. It's like that's just a tough spot for him.
Yeah.
But like the hard part for the Celtics is, and I would love to have these problems, where it's like honestly none of this matters until like the conference finals, right? Like that's when their season really starts. And it's what it is. Like I actually thought there was, I forgot who tweeted this. Somebody might have been like Nate Jones on NBA or something. He tweeted like about how something about the Grizzlies and like how championship windows are kind of like so fleeting and you never know when things can just go against you, and so you have to go for it when you can. And I thought like ultimately, even if I have
sometimes your favorite player, best player on your team just ends up getting suspended for 25 games because, according to Tim McMahon, he was listening to too much NBA YoungBoy.
Tim McMahon's been saying some things. He's definitely been saying.
Yeah, he really did.
It's just funny to use the Grizzlies as the example of the championship window team, because it's like I don't really know what they could have done.
Yeah.
like John Morant just going AWOL was not in the plans.
Yeah.
Like,
it's definitely like a funny thing, but it's the point is like it's kind of like irrelevant. It's funny that the Grizzlies is kind of like what made him think of this, but I do think like as much as they took big risks this summer, and I do think the Celtics took big risks this summer. Like ultimately, if they felt that team just needed like, kind of felt stale, right? Maybe like that's what it was. And they were just like, it feels stale. Feels like we keep coming up against the wall. We need to change something about like the makeup of this team in a significant way, and not just like keep working the margins. I think they did a hell of a job. So we'll see how it ends up. But like I do think Brad Stevens has proven to be a pretty shrewd operator as a GM, unfortunately, which fucking sucks.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, awesome. Just what they need.
So happy for the
Shadow, I said this on Roundball Rock last night. Brad Stevens is a clone of CIA operative Pete Buttigieg, and this is he was sent to save the Boston Celtics because the NBA was a failing product and they needed the Boston Celtics to be good again. They already had LeBron to save the Lakers from their incompetency, so this is what they sent us the failed Mayor Pete clone.
White America needs its team back. I think
exactly.
Yeah.
Go ahead, sir.
No. You go ahead.
I would say on that note, if Porzingis is the guy who leads the Celtics back to.
Oh God.
No. Oh.
That will be a lot of fun for Knicks fans, for Boston to win a championship behind Kristaps Porzingis. I don't remember where he was.
Yeah, but you know
drafted,
what? I was so I thought about this like for way too long the other night. Like if that happens, it's not the Knicks that are going to get shit on. It will be the Mavericks, because the Mavericks, like, they tried to make him into some corner spacer, and then they were like, okay, actually, let's just salary dump him for Spencer fucking Dinwiddie and Bertans. Like, they are the team. Like, and the Knicks, like, we're so far removed from that I don't even think that, like, it will go on the Mavericks. It will be on the Mavericks, because it's just like they made the all-in move for him, then they punted on him, and here we are now. Like, I really don't think it would be like a LOL Knicks moment. I think it would be a more like...
It wouldn't be LOL Knicks. It will hurt me a little bit personally, Schwinn. I think it will hurt you too, even if you won't admit it here. But
no, I moved on. I'm a bigger man. I like, it's just sports, All right, let's move on to Trill's squad here.
We don't have to. It's all good.
Oh, wait, by the way, Sam, what's your final prediction for the Celtics?
I think they're going to win 62 games, and I think they're going to win the finals. But it doesn't mean I'm going to enjoy it. But it doesn't mean I'm going to enjoy it. I'm gonna be very mad the whole time.
It's a green teamer over here. All right. I still think Milwaukee comes out of the East, but I think it would not surprise me at all if what you just said transpired, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
All right, yeah, let's do the Sixers, because I know Trill's really excited to talk about this team. So
he's just hardening right now.
Yeah, so James Harden, huh? I know we did get a question. I'm sure you've had this question asked 7,000 billion times, but not from someone that's a Knicks fan. Wherever it is. Oh yeah, there it is. Does James Harden, does he get traded to the Clippers? And if not, does he stay at home or wear a fat suit? Or give a damn on defense more than he does when he plays serious?
I'm glad you asked that question, because to answer that, I'm not worried about Jalen Hurts at all. I think he's looked awesome, even though he's had some turnovers. In all seriousness,
like Jalen Carter, he's back. It's really good to see him on the field.
I feel like I am trying to predict what Daryl Morey is going to do is going to drive me into a pit of psychosis. So I can't really say whether he's actually going to get traded. I think it's impossible to predict James Harden either. Like, that's the problem with this whole thing. Like, 2 weeks ago, we're like, oh, he's just going to show up. He just showed up to practice and it's fine and nothing's happening. And now he's gone, but it might be for personal reasons, but maybe it's just convenient timing because of the fact that the Sixers season is coming up and he's not been with the team. So is he going to play in the first game against Milwaukee? Probably not. Like, it's just too much trying to predict all of this. I don't know how it ends. I really have no idea. I spent the whole offseason trying to figure it out, and I have no idea, but I would be shocked if James Harden is on the Sixers after the trade deadline. That's all I'll say. That's the only place I can leave it. It's like, I don't know if he plays for the Sixers. I don't know if he doesn't play for the Sixers, but I don't think that we will be sitting here on February 20th or whatever, and he will still be on the Sixers. He will be traded at some point this season, probably to the Clippers, and I don't know. I have no idea whether he's actually going to do it or not.
You've got to think of it for the Clippers, too. It's like you've got a pretty surefire stud, 22 years old, just in his second year in the league, and Terrence Mann.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. An up-and-comer, one of, like, when the Ringer does their 15 best prospects in the NBA, it's like Franz Wagner, Anthony Edwards, Terrence Mann, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Jaden Springer, but no.
Actually, Springer. But I've seen you. You've been mentioning it during the preseason. Like, you feel good about this team's depth, though, right? Like, you feel better about it than you did.
They
previously.
have good talent. Like, if everything was fine with James Harden, this team would be a contender, quote unquote. What that means, I don't know, because their best two players love to shit their pants at the higher levels. But if they had Harden under normal circumstances with this team, with this depth, with this coach, they would be in the conversation for third best team in the East or whatever, and maybe they could upset someone and make it to the conference finals or whatever. As it stands today, they're just going to, it's the only things I can look forward to really are like seeing progression from Maxey, what Nurse likes to do with the lineups. I think he's going to try to play a lot more athletic. I think he's going to try to play a lot more aggressive on defense to cause those turnovers and get the team out running more. I think they're going to try a lot more ball movement on offense because this team has had no ball movement. It's been completely stagnant because in the regular season, having James Harden and Joel Embiid, that gives you a top 5 offense with those two. So it doesn't really matter if you're stagnant in the regular season. In the playoffs is where it kind of comes back to bite them in the ass, but I'm looking forward to seeing, Ken Springer crack the rotation. He's looked awesome in preseason. I was very high on Springer before the draft. He was my number 1 guy I wanted with that pick. We got him. I was very excited, and then it was really rough for like a year and a half. And then I don't know what happened, but a switch was flipped, and he went on to win G League Finals MVP last year after kind of not looking great in the first half. And then he was good in Summer League, and then he's been amazing in the preseason. So I'm hoping that we can see some progress out of him. Kelly Oubre's kind of owned me. He was good in the preseason.
No, don't fall for his tricks.
Yeah, I
do not believe his lies.
I mean, look, I keep in mind the Sixers have not had a guy that is athletic that can dribble, pass, and somewhat shoot since Andre Iguodala. So, like, that is watching Kelly Oubre. I'm like blown away the fact that this man is athletic at all because we're like the most unathletic team in the NBA. But he was really good in preseason. I didn't like the signing at all at first. Mo Bamba should be in Europe. Yeah, I don't know. Patrick Beverly, I can't really get too excited about the team because I just know what's going to happen in the playoffs. But regular season wise, I think they're going to be a pretty competitive team.
Yeah, I think their over is like 48.5.
48.5. Yeah, I mean, I think it was 47.5 when we did it a few weeks ago. I think we took the over. If Joel Embiid plays 65 games like he has the last 2 years, the Sixers are always at a 52 to 53 win pace when he plays, no matter who is on the team. So. Yeah. That's kind of built into the equation. The problem is, can you have Harden sit out and then also have Joel miss games and then also they were really good when those guys were out last year. They were like 11-5 when those two didn't play, led by Maxey in the bench unit and that stuff. And like, I don't know if that's going to be completely doable again. And if that's the case, I could see them falling a few losses. I think that's going to be right around the range where they fall, is in the high 40s, low 50s. So I would stay away from betting on that, but I wouldn't be shocked if they had a slight over. They're a talented deep team. Like they have like 11 to 12 NBA players on the roster. The question is, what does any of it matter, really? Like, does any of it? I think they're going to surprise people early in the season how competitive. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if they beat Milwaukee in the first game and everyone's like, whoa, but like, it's the regular season. Like, can we really even care about this anymore?
The next game for Milwaukee's a must win.
I don't know, House. It's just like, Dame looks old. I don't want to overreact to one game, but
it's just you just see a guy, you can just tell sometimes.
Yeah. Do you think that Pat Connaughton's gonna retire midway through the season to become a full-time landlord like DJ Envy?
Is there any? How do you feel about Nurse with Embiid? Because obviously, like, there's been, I mentioned this earlier, but like there was always concern about like him running guys from the ground. I'm not sure how. I don't know. I never know what to do with that in the sense of like, is he playing his guys because he literally has 6 guys that are good and like that's what he has, or will he run guys in the ground even if he has depth? Like, or is there something where you're just like, I'm not too worried about this? Like,
I think he's going to play a 10 to 11 man rotation. And I think everyone's going to be like, oh, wow, maybe. Nurse had a hand in this roster. Like, Nurse brought in guys that thought would fit with what he wants to do, which is like he brought in Patrick Beverley. He wanted Danny Green again. Kelly Oubre, he wanted some length and athleticism. He's talked about it a lot. Same, and the idea behind the Bamba signing, I think, was he just wanted a spacing big, but Bamba's terrible. So I think that he had a hand in some of these signings, and he wants to start Melton, apparently, even when Harden's back, and play a little bit smaller with Melton playing some of the three more often this season. Like, I think, what's that?
He might know ball.
I think Nurse is a good coach, to be completely honest. All right, let me put it like this. I think Nurse is a good basketball mind. I think as a coach, he might fail on some of the interpersonal stuff. That's why teams get sick of him after 3 years, like they did in Toronto, 3 or 4 years. But the first year or two, it will probably be fine because he brings new ideas. He is a seemingly smart guy that has a good message and makes adjustments in-game and throughout the course of a season and all that stuff. And I think he will play like a 10-man rotation to start the year, and everyone will be like, oh, wow, maybe he just didn't have the depth that he needed in Toronto, because he's been doing that in the preseason, and like I think it's just going to carry over. Like this team, our 10th man is like, I know it's funny because Danny Green's like 36 now, but Danny Green looked amazing in the preseason, and he's 36, and you have like legit NBA rotation players coming off the bench. I think that this is going to be a team that, like, it once again competes a ton during the regular season, and I think people are going to be surprised by how good the Sixers look during the regular season and how motivated they look under Nurse, because like the vibes have completely shifted if you listen to the like how they talk in preseason compared to the last 2 years when they're talking in preseason. Like I think the team was just kind of over Doc Rivers. I don't blame Doc at all for last year, to be completely honest with you. I thought that was squarely on the star players in the biggest games. And yes, you would like the coach to make more adjustments, whatever, but like Nurse, I think Nurse is going to be very good for them in the regular season.
Sometimes we get tired of the doc. You need the nurse.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean, nurses know what they're doing anyway. Doctors are just,
Yeah, the nurses do a better job than doctors with less money. So I'm just gonna say I'm not slandering Doc. I'm being supportive of all.
Are you
our
slandering
nurses
Doc or Dr. J?
Yeah,
talking about Philly. I don't know.
Quick question for you guys.
Yeah.
Hold on. I'm respecting nurses, so just any nurses out there, I'm saying. Anyway, you can keep going now. So keep going.
At NBABabySecret, Uniball podcast.
DMs are open.
But just quick question: do we think it's more likely that we come out of this season saying, "Wow, the Raptors were the team no one wanted to play on any given night because they muck things up"? Or do we come out of this season saying, oh, wow, Nurse did a lot for the Raptors?
So I think I'd rather bet on the latter. And I am so fucking mad Nick Nurse got hired in this division because
it's so
he
annoying.
is a terrorist.
Yeah, I've called him fascist ball.
Him and Tibbs are going to be like, the world does not want New York Philadelphia 4 or 5 series.
It's going to be so gross. Yeah,
it's going to just be like 6 guys on each team playing fucking 58 minutes a game, super intense, and just like it'll be a lot of like 1996 looking NBA basketball going on. It will be awful, but I think Nurse is a good coach, and he obviously has, it's always weird to say this with a coach, like, oh, he has championship upside, right? But like, yes, they had Kawhi when he was in Toronto, but I mean, he was really good in all those series as a coach. Like his adjustments were good.
Especially the Buck series. I don't know if you guys remember the Buck series, but the adjustments that he made throughout the course of that series on defense were what won them the championship, in my opinion.
And I think people forget, like, after they were up 2-0, and it looked like the Raptors were just done.
Exactly.
He really made a lot of good adjustments. And the thing is, like, is he crazy? Will some of his adjustments be like completely insane and not work? Yes, but I think you need that willingness to try shit.
Mm-hmm.
And figure out what the hell works and what doesn't. And so, like, even if inherently the point is that, like, Joel Embiid has this individual, like, character player flaw or something where no matter what is around him, he gets the second round of the play, he's going to piss himself. Like, I think you have a better chance of figuring out whether that is entirely on him or if there's, like, look, the coaches and how they were deploying the talent around him was also part of the problem, because I think he'll just try shit. And
he definitely will.
Yeah. And I think that's the biggest thing. Obviously,
that's why Ty Lue's a 16-game coach too. Like Ty Lue isn't great in the regular season sometimes, but you get to the playoffs and that guy's going to be making adjustments like quarter to quarter, and you're like, oh shit.
Right. And I do wonder with like, it almost sucks for him in the sense of like, if he had just been there last year when Harden was like normal,
I know
you'd probably have a lot better chance. But
fucking
I mean, look, we'll see. The Harden thing is the Harden thing is just so weird. Where like, you can't talk about this team and ignore that. And then also like, I think Joel's been like he's deservedly, I think, finally catching shit after this past postseason. But in terms of
he's
just
been
like
really bad in elimination games.
Yeah. And but like, to his credit, I think for the most part he's been like he says things publicly and carries himself, I think, that in general is what you want from your franchise guy. Sure. And so like, do you feel like this Harden thing just, it's like, here we go again. He's dealt with so much shit like this, right? His entire time in Philly. Like, do you feel like this might be the last one where he's just like, look, if you can't turn Harden into something that we can turn into something, like, I got to get out of here? Or do you think he's like still pretty bought in here?
I think that is really what he probably said to Morey this offseason, was like, I'll give you one more shot to kind of make things right. You got to either nail the Harden trade or, like you said, get something that you can turn into, which is why I think he's been pressing so hard for Terrence Mann in these trades, because Terrence Mann is the only player that has somewhat trade value that the Sixers could realistically acquire from the Clippers in this. And if they can't even get him, then he's like, all right, well, then I'm shit out of luck, because I'm going to lose faith from Joel. And if I lose faith from Joel, it's all over anyway.
Do you think he'll have Embiid recruit Siakam next summer?
Maybe. I don't know if those two really have the best relationship, to be honest with you. I mean, not just because Siakam like broke his face with his elbow during the playoffs, but also because they've kind of like low-key thrown shots at each other for years. And like, I think they respect each other because they're both from Cameroon and they're both like incredibly talented basketball players. But I don't know if they have the best relationship. I also don't know what Nurse's relationship is like with Siakam as well. I think
Siakam playing on the Cameroonian team for the Olympics.
I don't think either of them are going to play.
I know Embiid is obviously, but I didn't.
We'll see. I don't know. I think they can technically qualify. I honestly have no idea. But long story short here, I think OG is probably the one that they're more likely to go after with the cap space next summer than Siakam. I think they would prefer to have Siakam, to be completely honest with you. But I think that if they do this like cap space plan or whatever, that they're probably trying to get a star in a trade elsewhere, whether it's like Zach LaVine or someone like that, and then turn around and get and sign OG with the remaining cap space is the idea, because they can get a ton of cap space next summer. They can get like.
Do you think they'll try to extend? Would they try to extend Tobias then?
No, they'll probably just let Tobias walk, is my guess. I think that next offseason, the guys that they're going to prioritize bringing back are Melton and Maxey, and then everyone else is like, they'll probably try to dump PJ Tucker's expiring contract. They'll probably let Tobias walk, and then they'll try to like rebuild the roster with like OG Anunoby, or maybe they'll take Jeremy Grant into cap space if he's still on the Blazers or something. Like, I think that my whole thing is, I think that they look less at the free agent crop and they look more at the players around the NBA that could get traded into salary cap space, and they view that as an advantage over other teams. Because we just saw, like, say what you will about John Collins. I'm not the biggest John Collins guy, to be completely honest with you. And I think that we saw that the league also isn't very high on John Collins. But Utah just getting him for Rudy Gay in a second-round pick was way less than anyone anticipated them getting back for John Collins. And Morey probably saw moves like that being done this summer and was like, if I have $60 million or $50 million in cap space and I can just get guys dumped into cap space, that might be the best advantage for building out a legit roster that I can kind of customize myself. Like and the thing that no one's really talking about, The Sixers will have 3 first-round picks available next summer. They have 1 available right now. If they trade James Harden and they can get 1 or 2 more first-round picks, then you're looking at like 5 first-round picks for next summer, plus a ton of cap space and all this shit, even if you want to buy into this plan. So that's the idea around it. They'll have a ton more assets. They could bring back Maxey and Joel, and they could build a team around him. I think it's mostly bullshit, but I also think that that's the general idea.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's some logic to that. And I do feel like, I mean, Jordan Poole is an example, right? Where it's like he got traded for basically nothing.
Yeah.
They got Chris Paul's expiring contract. And I get why Golden State did it, but like there's every chance that halfway through the season, whether he's actually good or not, people are going to be like, oh my God, Jordan Poole is good.
Sure.
Because he's going to keep putting up numbers. But like there's value to that, obviously.
Like Tyler Hero, for example. If not that I think that Tyler Hero is a perfect fit for what the Sixers need, but in general, if they are to trade for Donovan Mitchell next summer, you can just get Tyler Hero for free, basically. Is the like that
Right.
That's free agency's done. It's over. Like we just need to kind of accept that. It's like largely done, and all of the slop will be coming from trades and salary dumps.
Stop trying to make it happen. It's never going to happen.
It's never coming back.
We haven't shit.
Yep, we haven't had real free agency since 2019. There hasn't been multiple All-Stars that have moved since then. So
yeah, I mean, I think the closest chance you're going to have is 2025 if the cap jumps, but they've already like said they're going to smooth the cap, right? So
yeah,
you're not gonna get
10%. Yep.
Yeah, you're not going to get the big cap jump that you got.
Well, we're gonna find out when Kawhi Leonard and Paul George hit free agency. Who's letting him cook?
Yep.
Who's going for it? Let's
Steve
see.
Mills is
And
going to bring
White
him home
Walkers.
to New York.
Yeah.
All right, so I guess what for you would constitute a successful season for the Sixers?
Well, in reality, if they could make a fucking conference finals, I'd be thrilled. But honestly, the reality that we live in, probably 50 wins at a playoff series win I would be happy with that. I mean, I'd probably go insane if they lose to the Celtics again in the second round. But yeah, I mean that would be an awesome season. I think that they have the potential to. I think they'll definitely make the playoffs. I think they have the potential to lose in the first round this year, though. I think I picked us to beat you guys in 7, I think, but I said I thought that would be a really close series because I think that I said this last year. I thought
you made the fascism joke, and I posted the Stalin versus Hitler meme.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Just hope we're Stalin. But but long story short here, I think that the Sixers have potential to lose in the first round, especially if they don't make the right Harden trade during the season. I would imagine Morey's aggressive at the deadline, but we really don't have any fucking assets. So it's kind of hard to like make a trade happen out of thin air that makes us into legit contenders. So yeah, that's kind of the way that I view it. I've said I thought the Knicks were a bad matchup for us. Like since
because you guys haven't. Isn't like the secret is that like even though Embiid is this gigantic human being, you guys haven't actually been a good defensive rebounding team?
Well, yeah, because we don't have any plus positional rebounders except for DeAnthony Melton.
Right.
Like all of our positional rebounders are bad. Like Tobias is a bad rebounder. Tucker's an okay rebounder, but it's also one of the few things that he can still do. Tobias does not have good spatial awareness. Embiid is like if the effort and energy's there and he's healthy, he can be good, but he's really it comes and goes. Melton's probably our best positional rebounder on the team, and I think part of the reason why they went out and they got Patrick Beverley and Kelly Oubre and they re-signed Paul Reed was because they knew that was one of their biggest weaknesses and that they really need to put guys who can rebound. And like if they run up against the Knicks in the playoffs, they can't have what happened in the Cavs series where they just get destroyed in the glass and the Knicks are creating all these extra possessions. Ever since you guys I thought you guys were kind of a thorn in our side matchup before and like that you might push us to 6. Then you guys traded for Josh Hart and I was like, fucking shit. Because that really was like the worst thing is when we play you guys, we just get crushed on the glass. So that would be the one thing I would worry about in that potential series. But look, outside of the disaster year, which was the bubble season, they've won a playoff series every year with Joel. So even if they've had some easy first round opponents.
Yes,
Right.
as
So-
far as the Raptors versus Sixers thing, come back to the question. I'm going to bet on the team that has the MVP.
Right.
I just don't think the Raptors have anyone that excites me on that level.
Yeah.
That that's a pretty easy answer there for me.
Yeah.
You know, Scotty
they're
Barnes
gonna be
guy, huh?
locked in.
Scotty Barnes, you know, I forgot who it
He's
was.
him. He's him.
I think, you know, there was a pod, I think it was like Bontemps. He might have been on like Low a couple summers ago where he was like, why would they trade him for Kevin Durant? Like, they think he could be their Dwayne Wade. And I was like, he can't dribble. Dwayne Wade was like, he can dribble. He was like
Wait, hold
really
on.
good at.
They think they could be they think he could be their Dwayne Wade. Dwayne Wade won the championship in his second NBA season?
I think
Third
it was
NBA season?
third, yeah.
Like, but still, his like
At an all-time
third year
run.
in the
Like, it was like an
league.
all-time run, too.
Yeah. Like, you would
Yeah.
know by now if Scotty Barnes were Dwayne Wade. Like, he might make the All-Star team at some point, but he's certainly not going to be Dwayne Wade. I think we can all agree on that.
Yeah. He could be the king of Canada, maybe, one day. All right. Speaking of the king of Canada, let's talk
RJ
about the
Barrett. Yeah, there we
RJ
go.
Barrett,
Let's
here
go.
we are. I'll just like say, I guess, like, I mean, I'm sure we have talked about this obviously all season, but like, Stacey, what would you say what would be a successful season for the Knicks? Because I see a lot of people like talking about the specifics of this, and I don't like. I think for me, I'm more like, I can't tell you until 1, we make the playoffs, 2, what our matchup is, and just 3, like, generally want to see how the season goes, because we haven't made back-to-back playoff appearances since 2013. Because we made it in 21, then we obviously had a bad season in 22, and then we made it back last year. So, like, to me, just making the playoffs again to some extent is like a successful season, but I understand that you want to build on what you did or at least maintain. And so it's matchup dependent for me. But I'm curious to get your thoughts on that, Stacey.
A successful season is one in which they make the playoffs, and I'm not going to even tie it to winning a series because the seeding could vary.
Right.
And and again, there will be reasons for, like, to kind of, you were hinting at this a little bit. There's so many branches, right? If they end up with a 7th seed and they, lose in the first round, it's like, well, why did they get the 7th, right? Well, maybe Brunson was out for 30 games, or maybe, they had other. So you'd have to evaluate those things. To me, I think there's only 2 teams I would be understanding of losing a playoff series to, and that's Milwaukee and Boston. I don't think they should lose in the playoffs to Cleveland. Cleveland's an amazing regular season team. I think all of the reasons the Knicks just bodied the shit out of them last year still apply.
I actually think that would be worse now. Like, Niang is the worst rebounder in, like, NBA front courts.
Yeah, they went. I'm telling you from experience, Niang will definitely help your spacing, and he will definitely hurt your rebounding.
Yeah, and so the lesson they took from that Knicks series was clearly, and I mean, it's not the wrong lesson necessarily. It is a lesson I would have taken, and I don't blame them. Is that the Knicks were just leaving their 3 open no matter what, right? I think if Mobley can't shoot, it's not going to matter as much anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But so if the Knicks make the playoffs and don't and lose to Milwaukee or Boston, that's fine. It might be a sweep, and like, unless it's like a horrible looking sweep, I don't think that would be awful.
You need to have good sweeps like the Lakers, the most competitive sweep of all time.
Yeah, and so like the platonic ideal for me is that they end up with, if they can somehow get the 3 seed, avoid those 2 teams for 2 rounds, and make it to the conference finals, take Milwaukee to 6, take Boston. I like our matchup with Boston quite a bit better. I actually think Mitchell Robinson against Porzingis could be really fun on both sides. I think watching Mitch have to go up and guard on the perimeter after what we thought. That's what we thought he was going to be, right? What people forget, Mitch was, as a rookie, was known as this kind of, on defense, almost a Jaren Jackson type, right? Like, he's more of a mobility guy. He was an awful rebounder, and just very undisciplined. He's kind of changed a little bit more into an interior defender, but it'd be interesting to see him get that mobility tested. I'd obviously give Boston the advantage, but I think the Knicks can give him a fight. That's how I'm looking at it. I think in terms of
don't like the
wins,
Bucks matchup? I think that the Bucks are going to win the East. But I also think they have massive flaws that could be exploited by pretty much any team in the playoffs.
I think the problem with us against the Bucks is we don't have. Okay, the reality is this: the Knicks can get to another level if RJ Barrett takes a leap of some kind, and if Emmanuel quickly and Quentin Grimes get better, and like those
And if
three
Randall
are
shows up in the playoffs.
and Randall shows up in the playoffs. Like those are like basically the 4 keys to the season, because I think Mitchell Robinson is going to do Mitchell Robinson things. I think Jalen Brunson is one of the most consistent players in the league. I think Isaiah Hartenstein is one of the best backup centers in the league. I think Dante DiVincenzo will be Dante DiVincenzo, and I think Josh Hart will be Josh Hart. But like the upside is what those 4 guys do. And if we're going to be completely frank, as I talked about, like RJ Barrett had a nice playoffs, but like you need him at this point, like year 5, really, like if it's going to happen, and I'm not talking about even being an all-star something, but just being like a real quality starter, which
Like
is
Wiggins,
plus starter.
Wiggins,
yeah,
right?
yeah, like that's really. Like, I don't think. I know that you need a superstar, or whatever, right, to win, but like forgetting winning, talking about being competitive against a team like Milwaukee, like you need to own those wing matchups, because their wings are kind of where their weakness is, and if RJ can't do that, then it's a problem. If Grimes can't do that to some extent, it's a problem. Like, so that is where I'm more concerned about it, because like RJ Barrett, even if he has a good season, I promise you it's not going to be because he's now like this diverse 3-level scorer. It's going to be because gets really good at driving into the paint and finishing. He takes a leap as a finisher and makes better decisions.
That's probably it's a shoot league average,
right? And against Milwaukee, I feel like that's just not going to be that successful.
Yeah, it's also it's
because you have Brooks, you have Giannis. Like that's where the strength of their defense is. So I just don't know that like could Brunson draw Damian Lillard in the series? I think he could. Like I actually don't think that's that crazy at all. But do I think that Randall and Mitch can they out? I don't see them.
It's going to be bully ball, and you're leaning into their the
Brooke is
defense, especially.
Brooke is an incredible defensive rebounder. He also can pull Mitch out. We have seen Randall actually come up with some great games against Giannis in the regular season. I don't think it would be for me to say that they can handle Giannis. That's tough. But I think the biggest thing I would say is that in that matchup, particularly, you mentioned it with the Sixers, right? What worries you most is our rebounding. Brooke is, and his brother, for that matter, is one of the best defensive rebounders in the league. I think Mitch would have a tough time really spotting him the way that he did too, and of course Giannis too. So,
yeah. I was just merely thinking because I think about like the best games that Maxey has had 2 of the best games of his career against the Bucks, and they always struggle with those small, kind of shifty guards that can kind of get downhill quickly.
Played well against them too.
Yeah, I was gonna say quickly and Brunson would be a nice test for the Malik Beasley, Damian Lillard point of attack defense couple like that. I feel like that's got to be the major issue that they solve, and I think it's easier to solve that issue than it is to solve the shot creation issue that the Bucks had at the higher levels, which Damian Lillard should be able to. So that's why I'm higher on the Bucks, because I think that they could make a move. Even if they just get someone who's passable on defense and could survive, or is good on defense and can survive on offense, it would change a lot for them next year.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, I wonder, because Randall's kind of the elephant in the room, I feel like, for any playoff hopes that they have, right? Like, and that's the thing is that he seems to be, for whatever reason it is, he does seem to be sort of a playoff. What's the opposite of a riser? Shrinker? Yeah, it's just something like that. So a dropper.
That's Embiid and Randall.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, and I kind of like it. Randall. I mean, hey, he made his second. He made All NBA again, right? Yeah. So, I mean, you make 2 All NBAs. I mean, you're a legit player at that point. I wonder. Do at some point to the Knicks, because Randall has, really, it seems pretty complicated from the outside. I don't know.
It's every other year.
I was going to say,
he's bad. It's so weird. Not bad, but not good as he is during his season when he makes All NBA.
He's got that complicated relationship with Knicks fans. Like I wonder, like if that's the spot to upgrade. Like I think getting Randall out for someone who is more of a playoff performer and can kind of help, because I think that's what's really killed the Knicks and their playoff hopes. Is Brunson is clearly that guy. I was so impressed with Brunson last playoffs, and I think that you need to get him a front court partner who can, at least not completely fall off a cliff the way Randall does. Randall does give you that high floor for the regular season. Like I think the Knicks are pretty safe of being in the play-in and are probably, more likely going to be a 4 or 5 seed than anything else. But
comment from Hug Life. Finally, the part of the program where the Ringer staff writer Sam gets waterboarded until he admits the Knicks are good. Tryhards.
They are tryhards, but that's what makes them good. To be
I was gonna say, that's a Tom Thibodeau team.
That's every Tips team. Yeah.
It's but I think what happens. I mean, I'll just say, I think with the Randall part of it is last year he sprained his ankle 5 games before the playoffs. He comes back in that Cavs series, and he re-aggravated it in Game 5 when he actually was if you go back and if you just look at his numbers in that Game 5, I think he played 17 minutes or something. He was on pace for a triple-double. He was absolutely dominant, just completely owning the libs in that game. And he obviously he re-aggravated his ankle, so he goes out for that game. He misses the opening game against Miami. He comes back. I don't think the ankle injury explains everything, because there were just moments in that series where you're dude, you have to get back on defense, or you have to
throw down tomahawk.
Yeah, you have to try to make rotations. You have to try to do things. You can't just go mentally collapse like this. So I think the injury is a fair thing to bring up as a mitigating circumstance, but I tend to agree with you. I think whatever it is that goes on with him internally, he's got to figure that out, because if he doesn't, then your ceiling is what we were last year. That's ultimately what your ceiling is. You're going to be a team that can win a playoff series in the right scenario, but doesn't have the margin for error against a good team. And part of that is on Tibbs too. Tibbs can notoriously been a guy who his teams in the playoffs don't have that extra gear. They're not super, we talked about Nick Nurse kind of works things out. He's a mad scientist. Tibbs is the opposite of a mad scientist. Tibbs's idea of experimenting was playing Jericho Sims at the 4 during preseason. It's not fun experimentation. It's what if
Tibbs
what if it's 1993 still?
I was gonna say Tibbs is Nurse's vibes, but with Doc's stubbornness and brain. That's why him and Doc were boys. He's the Nurse kind of grind you down, loves defensive guys, all that stuff. But at the end, and loves to play his guys big minutes when necessary or whatever. But he ultimately, at the end of the day, is a huge boomer. And and Nurse is a Gen X guy, so he's more. I think
he's listening to Pearl Jam. Exactly. There's no doubt about that. Yeah,
loves Springsteen, listens to Pearl Jam. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, those are the big things for me. I think swing pieces for the Knicks. I mean, we've talked about this, but this team is young, pretty much across the board. Their main guys, they're 9 rotation guys. None of them. The oldest one is Randall. Or it might be Josh Hart, whatever. They're both 28. After that, Brunson's 26. It's guys that are either in their prime or approaching their prime, theoretically getting better. And it's it's always dangerous to assume progression is linear, but they've kind of this isn't a first or second year player anymore, right? These are guys that are a little bit deeper into their careers. So at most, you would be it's more reasonable to expect them to plateau or level out rather than get worse. So I think there's a pretty safe floor with this team because of that. The preseason was not great for them, so we'll see if that was just some weird we don't give a shit about this thing, or if there's actual real concerns there. And Tibbs teams notoriously start out pretty slow until the first quarter of the season's over. So that's nothing. But yeah, I don't know. What's a successful season for them? I would say that if you just want very broad things, winning a playoff series would be great, but again, making the playoffs for sure. Julius Randle not pooping himself in the playoffs would definitely be nice. Tibbs embracing playing small at the 4 when Randle's not on the floor, and one of Quickly or Grimes are both potentially taking another step. I think those would be, if those things occur, the results you want to see will probably go hand in hand with that, and they will be a better team. But we know that this team is waiting to make a big move, and like it would. That's why like a Knicks 76ers playoff series would be very Hollywood. For
Yeah.
many reasons.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Definitely.
There's like a lot. It's kind of like why the Knicks Cavs series is kind of like, oh, so we're doing this, huh? Good, funny seeing you here, Donovan.
Exactly.
It is funny that like Knicks Cavs series was this like steel sharpens iron thing where it's like like it normally like you would think the big city team was the ones that were like soft and like favored, but like the Cavs are like, oh no, their rebounding was too hard. Like,
Midwest.
no,
Yeah.
Lights are too light. Quote Jared Allen.
yeah, I was gonna say it's very funny to have a soy Midwest team. Like, meanwhile the New York team is tough. New Yorkers, hey, we're walking here.
Well, it's Midwest, but it's Ohio, and if you watch their
That's
college
true.
football team, they've been pretty soft for a while. So
Yeah.
But yeah, like I think with whatever it is, like this division's pretty interesting. We can just do this real quick, and then we'll get out of here after we do All Stars and All NBA guys in the division. But like I think for me, I see this division breaking down as I think the Celtics win it. I've gone back and forth on this a lot. I think Joel Embiid is probably a safe enough bet to play enough games that they get the 2 seed or the 2. They finish second. I think the Knicks finish third, and then I think there's a pretty decent fall off from them and then I'll just say like I think Brooklyn finishes out of Toronto. So that's how I'd go with that.
Yeah, that feels right.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Stacey?
yeah, no arguments here. I think there's a chance Brooklyn implodes. But
Yeah,
I
don't
was
think
gonna say I think I had the Raptors I had one seed ahead. They were the 10 seed. I had the Nets as the 11 seed.
Yeah.
So
I do think there's a chance the Knicks could I think there's a pretty decent chance the Knicks would finish above the Sixers. As long as Embiid is there and he's like serious, which I anticipate him being, like I'll roll with them. And I do think Nick Nurse is a good coach, especially his honeymoon phase should be good.
yeah, outside of the one season, I think the lowest seed they've been is a 4 seed. Outside of the bubble season when they had Horford and Richardson and all that. So they've been a top 4 seed every season with Embiid when he's relatively healthy.
Yeah, it also would not surprise me if like the top 5 seeds in the East, which I think are going to be in whatever order, these 3 teams, and then Milwaukee and Cleveland.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I think they could separate from the rest of the conference. Like I do think those 5 teams, for a variety of reasons, will be really good. Like Cleveland and New York will take the regular season extremely seriously, so that helps their cause.
Do you think is there a wild card? Like I think Indiana's being talked up. Do you think there's a wild card that could
Atlanta.
Really?
I think Atlanta's going to be the 6th seed.
That's Sam's Hawks.
You're close, but those are rookie numbers. Let's get those numbers up. We're talking about our 3rd seeded Atlanta Hawks, baby. Let's go. Quinn
I mean,
Snyder
look, Miami, you can't count them out till you shoot them in the head multiple times, as everyone has learned. So,
Watch
the
the
zombie heat,
movies.
the zombie heat will never go away. So you can't complete. I think I had them as my 6th seed.
No, they're getting the Trae Young and Quinn Snyder and freshly paid Onyeka Okongwu are coming to flush that turd down the toilet. Let's go. My Atlanta Hawks, Southeast Division champs. They've got.
I actually like that bet for them to win that division. I think it's a good value.
Yeah.
All right. So the last year, this division had 5 All-Stars and 4 All-NBA player selections.
Absurd.
Do we think are we going over or under on either of those this year?
I'm going under on both of those.
Under, yeah.
Yeah.
Was it 5 All NBA, 4 All Stars?
Yeah.
Yeah.
5 All-Stars, 4 All-NBA.
Yeah.
So the 5 All-Stars were Julius Randle, Joel Embiid, Pascal
Brown.
Siakam, Jaylen Brown, and Jason Tatum.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think Jalen Brunson probably makes it this year because
Yeah.
he didn't last year. He got snubbed. So I don't think they're going to give 2 Knicks it unless the Knicks are like a top 3 seed. But I could see the Jays both getting there, and I could see Embiid. I don't think Siakam or Harden isn't going to play, so he doesn't have a shot.
Call Bridges.
Oh, Bridges could make it. That's the thing. It could be a dead even 5, but
Yeah,
I don't think he's going to make it.
I don't think Jaylen Brown's going to make it this year.
I think
Jaylen
Porzingis
Brown
will
might
make
miss
it.
it. Yeah, maybe
I was gonna
Porzingis
say,
makes it.
There's no center designation, right? So that makes it tough.
But I think Boston's going to be probably I think they'll be the best team in the East, maybe by a margin at that point.
And
And I feel like they'll give them. Yeah, I
Is
think they'll have to
somebody getting a Kyle Korver All-Star, like when they give the Hawks 4 All-Stars?
Derek White.
The Jeff Teague.
Derek White.
Derek White's getting the Jeff Teague All-Stars.
Well, All-Star gets tougher for the guards because they just added. I mean, you have to assume Dame's gonna, right? So
Dame is down the East.
I can't wait until we get the article from like some major publication halfway through the year about how, Derek White, when the trade was made for him, people didn't really think much of it. Meanwhile, I was on Slopfest like, why the fuck is this happening? Why are they trading Josh Richardson for Derek White? This is bullshit.
Also traded Romeo Langford, who was unfairly cut because of the CIA
for the third time.
Yeah. The CIA deep state did this to Romeo Langford. He will be back. You've not heard the last of Romeo Langford.
We have.
Yeah, I think
No,
they'll get 5 All-Stars. The All-NBAs are the one that I'm not sure about.
well,
Because
definitely not.
I don't see Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown will not make an All-NBA team this year.
I don't think Julius Randle will again either.
I don't think Randall will.
Yeah.
So it's
I
really
think
just
Brunson
Tatum.
has a chance, but I think like the
Embiid,
guard depth
Brunson.
is so
Yeah,
insane.
ridiculous.
Yeah,
Yep.
I'm curious. Why do you guys not think? Like, do you think Randall's going to regress, or do you think it's just like he definitely has benefited in both his seasons from like Anthony Davis being hurt and like injuries. But
The thing is, he'll play the games. This is the other part of this that makes
Yeah.
it weird, right? He'll play the games, and a lot of guys won't play the game.
and he can kind of get 20 and 10 in his sleep.
Yeah.
Like
Also,
the writers
Narratives, though. I'm sorry. Narratives
Also,
are too strong.
That's what I was just gonna say.
He
Yeah,
shit
that's
himself
the
in the
thing.
playoffs again, and
That's why
same
Embiid-
reason why Jalen and Embiid has no shot at MVP. Jalen has no shot
Yeah,
at All
right.
NBA. Like it's narratives. Like they carry from year to year, and I don't think it's going to be like the determining factor. But I think that he'd have to be balling out of his mind to be.
I was just saying,
decide.
Randall would need to take a step up. Like he could have an identical season to the one he
So
just
he
had.
goes 25-10, and you still don't think that would be enough.
I don't think so. No, I think they're going to find
It
a
would
way
have to be.
Yeah, they're going to find a way to like give it to someone else. Like if this is just an example. Let's say like the Pacers or somebody like that are killing it. A bad example because they don't have a.
If Obi got All NBA over Randall,
Obi's making the All NBA leap
But,
with
like,
Hallie.
If the Hawks are as good as like I always joke that they're going to be, like Clint Capella would be like a guy who would get like All NBA
No, he wouldn't.
before that. I'm just saying, like the
Porzingis,
reward,
right?
No,
Porzingis
the
would
reason-
be, yeah.
bullshit. Sometimes
Porzingis is a good one.
Yeah,
The argument for Randall making All NBA is he doesn't get hurt, and the wing depth in the NBA is actually not good at all. And the argument against it is that there will probably be a change year to year, and the majority of guys who make All NBA are almost always considered one of the 15 best players of the NBA, and he's just not. To get it consistently, to get it for the third time in 4 years, like I feel like you got to be considered one of the 15 best players, and he's just not. But then again, once again, if he does benefit, these new rules change things because you have to play 65 games to even qualify. So that's the big thing that's in his favor. But like, if the Magic are better than expected, Franz or Paulo will have a shot. Like they're gonna give everyone the opportunity.
Halliburton's definitely getting
before Jaylen Brown and Julius Randle. Yeah, Halliburton will get.
Halliburton's definitely in. I
Also,
think
it's
Garland has a
it's
shot.
positionless now. It doesn't even matter.
Oh yeah,
More
never mind.
guards are gonna make it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Gonna
duh.
happen. Yeah,
Yeah,
right,
none of this matters because it's all. Yeah,
I forgot about that. Yeah,
It's
Ben,
just
we
for
have a
All-Star,
very
so-
important question for you.
yeah. Do I disavow the Boston media mafia? Of course,
it's very
I do.
important.
They've turned on Marcus Smart. They've made the most egregious sin. They all like the heinous Night's Watch people who stabbed Jon Snow in the back of the wall. They will get their comeuppance and they will reap it when the Memphis Grizzlies, without Stephen Adams, without Ja Morant, go get their way to the finals on the back of starting center Marcus
No
Smart.
Brandon Clark either.
When they're
Yeah,
like when they're stabbing, are they like for Joe Mazzulla?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for Joe Mazzulla, that's what's happening every time they do it.
Oh man! All right. Look, we've been doing this for a while, guys. Thanks so much for coming on.
Having us.
Let the people know where they can find you and plug anything that you guys like to plug.
Yeah, so if you're still following us, or if you're still on here somehow over 2 hours in, I commend you. You're an amazing person. But Patreon, YouTube, YouTube with TrillBroDude is the name on there. Spotify, Apple, all that stuff. So you can follow us on any of that, TikTok, whatever. We're on everything. So just follow us, check out our stuff if you enjoyed this episode, and sign up for the Patreon if you want bonus episodes every week and access to our Discord.
Everything Trill just said. Then just the last thing I would say, if you are a singer, songwriter, Dua Lipa, just really check us out. Check me out. I've done a lot of really good riffs recently. I think you would like to check out. Reach out. Yeah, I've done really good with the bits. So I just
Oh, Sam, we did have somebody in our Discord that wanted. They requested that you do the. Can I see it?
Can I see it? Can I see it? Let me ask you something, Vernon. Do you think Dua Lipa overrated, underrated, properly rated? Good grief! You're asking me, Bill Simmons? I think Dua Lipa is. Now, look, I don't want to get myself in trouble here, but good grief! That's my Vernon. That's the best I got for
Vernon's good. Vernon's he's got the right boomer energy going on there.
Exactly.
Stacey, let people know where they can find you and plug anything you'd like to plug.
I'll echo everything Sam and Trill said. I just dropped a season preview pod with Matt Miranda on the Believe Knicks pod. I think you guys will like that. For those who are football fans, definitely check out Strictly NFL. Frank Barrett and Constantine putting out a lot of great stuff. And excited for a great season. So.
I have nothing to plug personally, but I'm excited for the new season. I will definitely plug all the stuff that we are going to be putting out, podcasts, articles. We should have a roundtable coming out on Wednesday morning, so keep an eye out for that. And aside from that, I will just plug our wonderful sponsor, BetOnline. Thanks everybody that tuned in. Sam, Trill, thanks for coming on. Hope everybody has a great evening, and I will see you on Friday.
Thanks. Go Birds.
Thanks, guys.